All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Tiverton Town Council, Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
They were behind you. I was losing track.
Councilor Comito?
Present.
Councilor Burk?
Present.
Councilor Janick?
Present.
Councilor DiMederos?
Present.
Councilor Edwards?
Present.
Councilor Paul?
Present.
Councilor Perry?
Present.
All present.
Thank you. Would any members of the council like to remove any items of the off the consent agenda? Councilor Janick.
A3, A4, D2, and E.
That's what I was going to do.
All right, with that, 4C as well? 4C too. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
So moved. Oh, second.
Motion been made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, Councilor Janick, A3 and 4.
Okay, so I just wanted, because I need to abstain from the vote on those. I wasn't here, and that was the only reason I pulled them off. Okay.
If you'd like to continue, Councilor Janick, with D2.
So D2 was a letter from Mr. and Mrs. Cormier regarding the VD charging station. And I know that they have written to us in the past. I thought it was already taken care of, and I know there were issues with licensing for that, and I thought that it had been moved or removed. So not only do they get bright, bright lights in their front window all night long, there's also blocking of the road by vehicles that cannot pull fully into that charging station. And it's a safety hazard, it's a nuisance, it's something that we really need to get fixed.
Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Councilor. So, you know, I did respond to Mr. and Mrs. Cormier's email. We've been working with the building official, and we're setting up a meeting with VD. It's my understanding that VD was able to obtain that charging station, given it's the only one in town, through a grant. Not that that gives them any excuse, given what's going on the placement of it, but we have had very preliminary conversations with VD. Myself, the solicitor, and the building official plan on having a sit-down meeting with them to vocalize our concerns about its placement.
I remember that when it first came up, the building inspector did see it, but he thought the placement was inside. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
It wasn't going to be at the side of the road, and they were going to leave that gate open. The placement is not where they originally said it was going to be.
I know we're looking into all of that. I've spoken to the owners of VD. They are aware of our concerns, so we want to have a sit-down meeting, and I hope to have some comment to Mr. and Mrs. Cormier and the council by the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Councilor Janick, E.
And I thank you, Chief, because they're very nice people, and he's always to me, but they're very nice people, and they've been more than patient. This has been going on for over a year, so thank you for that, doing that. Letter E, the recommendations from the North End and Industrial Business Park Subcommittee. So this was a preliminary report to meet the criteria that we had been given to report in by August. The plan is being finalized. The plan's already put together. It just needs to be formatted. And so
Made to look professional.
Made to look professional. And we've requested that it be on the agenda in September so that we can go through the whole report with the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Perry.
4C 2, pay periods 6/26/25. I think it's the third page in, fourth page in. And the fire chief is not here tonight, so I'm not sure I'm going to get an answer. But under union business, way down the bottom, we have 3 hours of overtime. Why are we doing union business on overtime?
Mr. Administrator.
So if it's anything similar to the police department, I would have to double check with the chief and the collective bargaining agreement. But normally, they're allowed to attend union conventions, and it is part of the collective bargaining agreement that the union president and possibly 1 or 2 other members of the executive board are allowed to attend at an expense. But before I answer that officially, let me speak with the chief and research the collective bargaining agreement, and I'll get back to you, sir.
You are correct.
Thank you.
That's what it's for.
Thank you, Councilor Comito.
What was that?
That Administrator is correct. That's what it's for the president to do union business. If he's working, usually he leaves, they call somebody back to fill his shift for 3 hours.
Okay. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve A, 3, and 4.
Should I,
Councilor Comito.
on A1 and 2, I was not here for that, so should I also abstain from that? I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but
We've already approved those,
that's
but.
what I thought.
So,
That's why I'm asking now, but, okay.
all right. So, do I have a motion to approve A, 3, and 4? Second. Motion by Councilor Perry, seconded by Councilor Paul. All in favor? Okay. Abstention from Councilor Janick. Now I'd like to entertain a motion to approve C2, D2, and E.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? None opposed. Thank you. So we have a number of people who did sign up for public comment. All are related to the public hearing, which is still open. So I'm going to defer all of them until the public hearing. Next item on the agenda is appointments and resignations. We have acknowledgement of resignation from Councilor Burk from the Semiquincentennial Commission effective August 4th, 2025. Do Councilor Burk?
Merely because I've not been able to give that commission the time that it requires and it deserves. So, in fact, I think they're meeting tonight. So that's why I resigned from it.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the resignation of Councilor Burk from the Semiquincentennial Commission?
So moved. Whatever.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion been made and seconded. One bit of discussion. Councilor Burk, I am obviously disappointed to see your resignation, given that this commission was 100% your idea. So we will have to find somebody new.
At the request of the Secretary of State for all cities and towns that do it.
But we could.
Yeah,
I
we
may vote
could
no.
just not accept it.
All right, so all in favor? Not opposed. Okay, next
Abstain.
item. Councilor Burke is abstained. Next item, Conservation Commission, 7-member board, 3-year term, 3 vacancies. We're actually going to skip this one. This gentleman did not mean to put in for this, so moving on. All right, next up, we have public hearings as advertised. Skip Hall / Rise Up Racing requesting approval of sound variance for Fast Fridays car show at Longplex Family and Sports Center, 300 Industrial Way on Fridays, 8/8, 8/22, 9/5, 9/19, and 10/3 from 5 to 10 p.m.
I have a
Is
question.
the applicant present? You want to?
Already done it. Yeah, I'm going to bring it up.
I'm not Skip, but I'm here to represent Skip.
All right. Skip in spirit. All right. Do we have
Can
any
I ask a
questions from the
question?
council? Councilor
Can we get
DiMaggio.
his name?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Name and address for the record.
Timothy Rosa.
So I do have a question.
Okay.
He's already done this one day already, on 8/8.
We've done it twice currently.
And now you're asking for approval after it's already been done.
Well, we haven't had any, we're asking for approval for our DJ to be outside of the facility. Currently, the most current events, our DJ has been in the facility.
That's what I'm asking. So the first 2 events was inside.
Correct.
So now you're asking for a sound variance outside.
Correct.
All right, that's what I thought, that on 8/8 and 8/20, Well, I just see 8/8 here, so what's the date? The 16th, right? No, it's like the 12th. God, time's
Time
going.
marches on.
Time marches on. So 8/8, that's what I was asking. Like, was this done outside without approval?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, any other questions or comments from the council, the applicant? Councilor Burke?
Do we have, and I'm trying to check while we're talking, isn't there a limit on the number of times these can be provided to an applicant?
Some variance is business.
The solicitor is going to investigate.
You're quicker than me.
In the past, that's what they've said, Mike, that's why you're asking, but I don't know if it's officially written. We talked about that,
We talked about this when we talked about the last time this was.
the
before us.
boathouse.
Okay.
I think it's been a kind of a policy, but I don't think it's actually in the
Okay.
ordinance.
While the solicitor confirms that for us, I do have a question. The venue owner, are they in favor of this?
He hasn't presented an issue with it. So, not to us, anyway.
He should be the one.
Okay. Mr. Administrator, is that your understanding?
I'm sorry, Mr. Question.
That the venue owner is okay with this?
Not aware of any conversations regarding.
Okay. No, they
No.
applied for it, but they didn't get it in time for advertising, so the first one had to have the DJ inside, I think is what this gentleman's saying.
What, my thing, and I've always said this, shouldn't the businesses be here asking for this? And because
I think that's where the ordinance does say it's the event,
we discussed
not
that in the past.
not the event location, but who's
Who's
running
doing
it.
it?
Okay. Councilor Burke, the solicitor did say that there is no limit in the
Okay.
ordinance. All
Thank
right.
you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? All right, and this is a public hearing, so I'd like to actually open up the public hearing. Getting a little ahead of myself. Would any members of the public like to speak on this application? Any members of the public? If, by all means, come on up. Choose your path wisely. And just name and address for the record, please.
Wendy Turcott, 595 Fish Road. I live close enough to the industrial park. We hear a lot of the noise from it already, the industry up there. Fish Road has really gotten busy. I'm not against more industry in there, but I was just surprised that it was supposed to be more industry. When I saw this being a race car, what is your industry?
It's more of a car show type thing. It's more, we're basically trying to bring cars and religion together. That's our thing. It's
I
not,
thought we
there's no,
tried to put the industrial park as being, so that there was no commerce in there. Wasn't that why we stopped Longplex from having sales and things like that? So it was.
So,
That
Mr.
was,
Solicitor.
that was an appeal under the zoning code, and the town lost that appeal, so.
Oh, we
yeah,
did.
yeah. Court ruled that our zoning ordinance allowed those kind of activities at that place.
And do they get a tax break?
No.
Oh, okay. It just seems like they've kind of overstepped their bounds a little and are getting their way with a number of their projects. And some of the townspeople in that area are, you know, we want industry there, but what industry? I mean, I certainly don't want, was going to be another gravel grinding up kind of place in there. We've got too many of those gravel rock trucks down on Eagleville, on Fish Road. I mean, the noise and the car racing at night, it's gotten bad.
So, Ms. Turcott, just not to cut you off,
Yeah, I'm
but
getting off.
as it relates to the request for an
Music.
outdoor
This is
DJ.
more music.
yes.
I know he's going to have music at night, and it's not that, but I just didn't think that was necessarily a recreational area. It is, fairly nice up there as far as a wooded area. The businesses are there during the day, I understand that, the hydroelectric and others, but, I just wanted to put my voice out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to speak on this application? All right, I'd like to close the public hearing. Councilor Janick.
It's not a car race, right? It's a car show.
correct.
And what's the car and religion piece?
It's almost like a cars and coffee, where you just go, you hang out, you show off your vehicle, people communicate with each other, and we're just trying to bring religion into the car industry and try to mingle it together.
I'm totally not following you.
Was it part of a church function?
It's not, no, but it's something that it's a ministry that we've started, that Skip has actually started, and it's to minister to men and women, and to basically bring cars and ministry together, is basically what it is.
So it sounds like it's for car enthusiasts, you're also trying to help them find religion.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions from the council? All right, Councilor Comito.
I mean, this is strictly a sound variance.
Correct.
It's, okay.
All right, with that, do I have a motion on the application?
So moved.
All right. Councilor Perry motions to grant the sound variance for now 8:22, 9:05, 9:19, and 10:03 from 5 PM to 10 PM at the Longplex. Any further discussion? Councilor Burk.
So I am going to vote against for two reasons. One is the number of events going on. I just really think that while it's not permanent, it kind of leans towards a long-term event that is identified in the sound variance ordinance. But secondly, and again, this isn't against you or Skip, we have another occasion where this is coming to us at the last minute, and the property owner understands, hopefully, what we've asked him to do is to make sure these come to us much sooner.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing
Further
none.
Full disclosure, I bring my car there, and I don't go for the religion. I just bring my car there.
Well, you're more than welcome.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Councilor Janick? Okay. Sorry, I didn't see you. Councilor DiMedeiros' head was in the way. All right, next item is the continuation of last meeting. Oh, by the way, you're all set. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next item is the continuation of the public hearing from the 7:14 meeting as it relates to C&D. We have the applicant here. I'd like to, since we're continuing the public hearing, if you'd like to begin speaking before we get to the public hearing piece.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Michael Monti on behalf of Ryan DeMello and RD Recycling. So as Mr. President said, this is a continuation of the public hearing, which will ultimately determine whether in the planned development park, a construction and demolition debris recycling facility will be allowed. It's not an application for any particular site at this point, but if it is approved, it will allow for that in the planned development park. We've heard feedback from the council members, and also the planning board had a subsequent meeting on this issue in August, which they didn't inform us of, but notwithstanding, we reviewed that, and we saw that the overwhelming concern that the public has, and that the planning board have, and that I believe that this council has, is that they haven't heard from an environmental expert about what this thing really is. Can it be operated safely? So we have with us here this evening the Executive Vice President of Green Seal Environmental, which is an engineering and design firm that specializes in solid waste. So Laura Bouguet, if you could come to the dais, please, is here this evening. She's a registered professional engineer with approximately 30 years experience in this very space. And she's really here to describe how these operations can in fact be operated safely, why some of the comments that have been made before the planning board and before this body by members of the public are really statements that are based on a lack of education in this industry, and why what's proposed here in Tiverton is different than what we've seen elsewhere in the state and other communities. So I would ask that Laura be allowed to speak, provide what her credentials are, and speak to why this particular design, as set forth in the ordinance that has been proposed, works in the planned development park, if you'll allow that, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I would ask that we're in the public hearing, correct? Correct. So I believe our policy states that anybody speaking is limited to either 3 or 5 minutes. I have to check, and I would ask that we stick to that.
Mr. President, I understand that, 3 to 5 minutes, but not hearing such important information would not be prudent to just cut somebody short. I disagree with Councilor Burk shutting this down.
Councilor Camino, I tend to agree with you in this instance, and at the last public hearing, we did allow several members to go well beyond 5 minutes. So I think given the fact that this is novel information, we as a body deserve to hear it, as does the public. So if you would please proceed.
I would suggest we need to waive our policy then, which we should have done last time, too.
Councilor Camino, do
I'd make a motion to waive the policy
I have a second?
with the expert testimony.
Correct.
Well, no, I don't feel that way. I feel if we're going to let the expert talk over 5 minutes, and let's be honest here, last time we had this, people were talking 15 minutes. So I don't really understand, well, I do understand following the policy, but that wasn't the deal last time.
Then the policy is 3 minutes, actually.
So I do agree with Craig, but I'd like to addend a motion to allowing everyone speak over the allotted time.
I do have one question for the parliamentarian, Mr. Solicitor. And I think the question revolves around the fact that this is from the applicant.
But we're on a zoning ordinance. He doesn't have preference over anybody else.
If
Could we say 15?
Are you looking at the section E1?
Our town council policy.
Yeah, E1.
Are you,
I'm looking at the policy, just trying to figure out where you're getting,
yeah, members of the public shall be entitled to speak at regular meetings during any period designated on agenda
for public comment. But I think that refers to the public
I
comment
would-
period of the agenda, not, this is a public hearing. I think it's within the discretion of the council president or this body to hear as much testimony as they want, especially this is a legislative act. So I think it's a little, I can see where you interpret it that way, but I believe this is a public hearing and it's a public,
I
we're
think
here to get.
when we made this, it was intended for all public
Yeah.
comment.
It does say public comment for,
I
I think,
understand
the
that.
agenda. So my ruling would be that it's up to the council president and the rest of the members of council if they, obviously, we have other business to take care of tonight.
Correct.
So this is a legislative act. Certainly, zoning change is a legislative act. The council should get all the information that it needs, both pro and con, to make a legislative decision. So it's up to you. And that would be the ruling of the chair. The parliamentarian.
All right.
Sorry.
And just to clarify, up to the president in this instance,
Yeah,
or the
they
body
will-
as a whole?
The body as a whole, but, obviously, you have other things on this agenda we have to get to tonight, so we've been very good. And again, we did have more than 5 or 10 minutes from comment last time, so just to be fair to everyone, including the applicant's entitled to a fair hearing as well.
Councilor Janick.
I do agree. We need to hear everything to make this decision. This was requested by a citizen at a planning board meeting, and planning board did put that in their recommendations back to us when they did a follow-up letter. So I think that we need to hear everything that, both good and bad, ugly, we need to hear it all.
All right. Then I would concur, and unless you'd like to call.
I would challenge the opinion of the
All
chair and the
right, so we have a
parliamentarian.
motion on the floor to waive our policy, seconded by Councilor DiMederos. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. Please take it away.
Laura, if you could start by explaining your credentials in this space.
Yes, thank you. Again, for the record, Laura Bouguet with Green Seal Environmental. Just to repeat, I do have about 30 years of experience designing solid waste facilities, which includes handling facilities, transfer facilities, landfills. I am a registered professional engineer in Rhode Island, as well as Connecticut and Massachusetts. I have worked on designing and permitting the Quonset, the NEWS facility in North Kingstown. as well as some experience with the Vinagro facility in Johnston, as well as the Central Landfill at a previous company. I primarily do a lot of work in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is technically right now an export state. We don't have a lot of landfill capacity anymore, and so a lot of the transfer facilities are functioning as export. So we bring material in, transfer, process, and ship a lot of it out on rail out of state. So I've worked on dozens of facilities, and I hope that my knowledge base can help the board understand what this facility could be with appropriate best management practices and good operations. And also I'd really like to address some of the public comments that were made before, because I do fear that there is some misinformation out there about what this facility could be in comparison directly to another facility in Providence, which I believe is the Pondview facility, which was an 1,500 ton per day C&D operation that was entirely outside and very close to the Omega Pond, within 50 feet of the pond. To start, first, this facility, this operation, if allowed and constructed at some point in the future, would be an entirely enclosed operation. And so what that means is that all the tipping, the handling, and the processing of C&D materials would be within an enclosed building, walls, doors, roof. This does a lot for the benefits of the operation. For one, it prevents stormwater from coming into contact with any of the pre-processed materials. So there's a separation from the materials and stormwater. I know that there is a concern that Stafford Pond is nearby to this site. The pond, based upon GIS, is anywhere between 1,600 and 1,800 feet away from the property line of the subject parcels. That's a significant difference from the Providence site that was referenced previously. The sound also provides for sound attenuation from the operations. The walls, the concrete, push walls within it, dampen any sound from machinery that would be operating in the facility to handle and process these materials. As a solid waste design engineer, I would go further and site the building such that the overhead doors in which the trucks would come in and out of to unload be sited onto the north side of the building, away from the nearest receptors, which is a residential neighborhood to the south of these parcels, which, again, from GIS, looks to be just over 1,500 feet away, property line to property line, from these parcels. And that's a great distance. The building also will provide dust control. The C&D materials tend to be dusty. There's a lot of wood in it. There's wallboard, drywall. So handling that can create dust. So unlike an outside operation where you're open to the elements and you're subject to wind, the building shelters you from that. These facilities are also built with atomized misting systems inside of them. So what it does, there's a superfine mist that's generated basically from the ceiling. So any dust that rises, that mist will attach to those dust particles and pull them out of suspension in the air and drop them quicker. So it provides great dust control. The facility itself on the outside would be paved, so any vehicle traffic entering and using the facility, we would be able to do daily sweeping or weekly sweeping or whatever is necessary if there was any dusty conditions. Again, more controls, more BMPs, BMP's best management practices for facilities type like this. The other thing that the building provides is fire suppression. A building such as this, of a certain size, is required by code to have a sprinkler system. I would go further, another BMP for facilities such as this that may have an increased risk of fire, which is true, have thermal imaging cameras inside, so they will detect hotspots within the materials that might be stockpiled in the building. And that gives you early detection, before smoke or fire emits and is detected by the sprinkler systems. Again, additional BMPs. Like I said, there was concerns about stormwater contact, the pond. We're aware that it's a drinking water source. The boundary for the watershed protection zone is outside of the delineated parcels that are of interest. In looking at the site, I do believe that it could be designed such that stormwater would shed away from the pond to stormwater management control devices. And in case of, a potential fire, God forbid, all that fire water would then still be directed away from the pond. So there would be no impact from that. I know that one of the residents who spoke last time, spoke about fires at these facilities. And just to provide some context, the two major reasons that fires happen at facilities, either C&D or your general municipal waste handling facilities, so your household trash, is welding, hot work. So if they're doing repairs to the building and they're welding and there's materials underneath, it catches, it's totally preventable. However, unfortunately, it does happen. And secondly is lithium-ion batteries. So if I do anything else this evening, this is my public service message to everyone to stop throwing away lithium-ion batteries and make sure that they get diverted and recycled and brought to appropriate facilities. So again, I do believe with proper controls, good design, it can be operated safely, cleanly, without nuisance conditions. There are extensive operation and maintenance control plans that are required to be prepared for these facilities. So, if anything gets delivered that shouldn't be, something that would be considered hazardous waste, like lead-acid batteries or even potentially asbestos-containing materials that can be commonly found in building materials that are older. There's licensed inspectors to see those, to pull them out from the waste stream, to separate them, to test them, and to send them to appropriate disposal facilities before they're further processed. Those are standard processes across this business. So I hope that at least gives you a little more of a snapshot of what these facilities can be, and that they can be well managed.
Thank you, Laura. I have a couple questions for you, and then I'd of course like to open it up for council members to ask questions of Laura. But you reviewed the public testimony at the last hearing in July on this subject. Is that correct?
I did, yes.
Okay. And I think there was a former fireman who provided his personal experience dealing with a facility in Providence. Is that correct?
That's what I recall, yes.
Are you familiar with that facility, generally speaking?
I reviewed permits, the license that was issued by RIDEM for that facility. It had a good, actually, explanation and write-up of all the public comments that facility received during review. And
Principally, I'm interested in how that facility is different than what would be allowed by the ordinance that we've proposed.
Right, so again, that was an outside operation. They had large stockpiles. Again, they had they had a hard time controlling their nuisance conditions because it was outside. And this is why an enclosed indoor operation is really just a better operation overall.
And was that facility also substantially larger than what would be allowed by this ordinance?
It was. Their permit allowed them to accept up to 1,500 tons per day, whereas your ordinance, or whatever proposed, starts at 100 tons per day limit. So significantly less.
So 10x less, more
Yes.
than that.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions for Laura, but do council members have any questions for her?
So before you step down, yes, are there any questions from the council? Councilor DiMederos?
You didn't mention what was on the floor of the building. Is it cement?
Yes.
All
Yep,
right.
full concrete floor.
Okay. And also, you were talking about a licensed inspector. Would licensed inspectors come in every day to make sure there's not batteries there or any kind of?
No, I would recommend that the facility itself has one of the operators trained as a licensed asbestos inspector.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Burk?
Thank you. Couple questions. You indicated that the closest property is 1,500 feet away?
From my
Correct.
measurements,
Okay.
correct.
Which I think somebody last time testified or identified that as well, something close to that. So have you read the proposed zoning ordinance?
I've skimmed it.
Okay. So I appreciate that you're speaking here on behalf of the applicant for a very different, who's really, to my mind, has nothing to do with this, because it's a zoning ordinance that would not just affect that property, it would affect the whole property in at least the PDP. So we don't have these pages
Yeah, they're not
numbered.
numbered.
Guess it's,
Oh, yes, they are.
yeah, page 5, under industrial uses, B, N, 1B, any construction, demolition, debris processing facility that is within a 1,000-foot radius of a residential zone shall conduct all operations covered under the license inside the confines of an enclosed permanent building. So we've just established that this is outside of that perimeter. And then on the next page, under L, for both interior and exterior storage. So this does allow for, this zoning proposal does allow for exterior storage. You just said it doesn't, but it does. It allows for exterior storage of materials.
May I clarify?
Storage of construction and demolition debris must be in approved and designated areas. For both interior and exterior storage, must be maintained between stockpiles.
If I may clarify, I was referring to the proposed project that I have spoken with the proponent. I am aware that the zoning ordinance allows for outdoor stockpiles at certain zones, but it is my knowledge that that is not what the proponent is considering.
Now, it suggests this public hearing is not on Mr. Mello's property. It's on the zoning ordinance itself.
Correct.
That's great. And if I might speak to this, when we were before the planning board and the conditions were drafted, which was principally done by the planning board and its legal counsel, we specifically stated in our presentation that all separation activities take place indoors. Now, if that didn't make its way into this draft, it can simply be altered to that effect here as part of that process. It is not the intent of this applicant to propose any such activities outdoors. I know that what the legal counsel for the planning board largely did was mimic the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management regulations. We proposed some further restrictions, one of those being that separation activities take place indoors, notwithstanding location to residences.
Okay, Councilor Camino.
So one of my questions where we talked about the separation taking place inside, after it's separated, would some of the stockpiles, would it be clean material outside to get stockpiled to then be removed from the facility? Is it only clean material outside, or is it?
Yeah, everything can be inside.
Even the piles that are,
That's correct.
to get ready to be removed, everything would be stored inside?
That's correct.
So if you separated everything, you have your wood pile, you have a metal pile, you might have a cardboard pile, all those piles are gonna remain inside the building?
It can be done that way.
Yeah.
No, and if you put it in the ordinance, it will be done that way.
It doesn't matter to me which way it's done. Clean material is clean material. If clean material gets stocked outside, and the ordinance always says we only have so many days, has to be removed, clean wood is clean wood, right? So if it's separated, I'm just asking if those piles are eventually gonna end up outside.
If permitted, there's no reason why clean materials can't be stored outside. Pre-processed material should never be stored outside.
That's,
That should be built into the ordinance.
that's basically what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Pre-dirty materials need to be
Processed inside.
inside.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Councilor DiMederos? Or Councilor
Okay.
Janick? You haven't had a chance to speak yet.
Well, I'm not finished, but no, you go. I just have one other question, because it came up the other night, and this is not, like, we've discussed this now for months. And I understood that the only debris that you will be taking in is from your dumpsters, not from everyone else. Well, that's what, at the beginning, why I voted to move this forward, because that's what I understood. But now I understand you're going to take in from others. Is that true? Okay. All right.
That's correct.
I just wanted to clarify that, because when that came up the other night, that was not my understanding. And I'm talking a year ago when Chris Carter was here. So that's how long ago this all was. So I always understood that it would just be Ryan's dumpsters that come in with his debris. All right, thank you.
Councilor Janick.
Okay, so you talked about the sound, and you talked about all the sound being contained inside, but what about the sound of the trucks moving in and out? What's that sound like?
Yes,
So that's a huge concern of the people who live in the area.
Yep. With the 100-ton per day limit that's in the ordinance, if we estimate at about 4 tons a dumpster that would come in, that would be about 25 trucks per day.
25 trucks going in, 25
Right,
trucks
and over
coming
an
out.
8 to 10 hour operating period, that's 2 to 3 an hour. So it's actually minimal, it's less traffic than probably what the Sportsplex takes in.
If we could, listen to the testimony, please. The council was respectful, listened to everybody speaking the last time. I would appreciate the same level of respect so we can hear the testimony as well.
So they're on-road vehicles that are just traveling on the streets anyways. So they would cycle in, probably about 10 minutes on site, and then would leave.
They're not little vehicles, though, they're big dump trucks.
Yeah, they're the loader trucks with the
Okay.
dumpsters on the back, yep.
So if we're talking 100 ton a day, are we planning to increase that?
So the way the ordinance is presently drafted, it would allow for an increase after 5 years, but it's this body's ability to draft the ordinance in whichever way it sees fit to make the best decision for the community.
Okay, any further?
So, one of the concerns, and you discussed lithium batteries, so I think everyone here knows we're not going to throw lithium batteries away, but there's a lot of other people outside who will do that. So what is the danger of lithium batteries showing up in this enclosed facility?
They can create sparks if they're dragged across the concrete floor with the machinery. Now, with the C&D facility such as this, there's a less likelihood that those would be in the waste stream that's coming in, because this is construction and demolition debris and not just general household trash.
Okay. But I think, in all honesty, if I'm doing a construction job in my home and I have a dumpster out there and I have something I want to toss, or a neighbor or someone driving by wants to toss something, we don't know what's going to be in there.
And
Right.
the facility has to deal with that. Yep. And again, it's not an everyday occurrence. It's every once in a while. Again, it could be a source of a potential fire outbreak. And a lot of those you don't even read about because they're contained immediately.
Laura, could you explain, like, imagine a lithium-ion battery is placed in one of those dumpsters and it makes its way into the facility. What happens? I think that's really what the council would like to know.
Yep, the material gets, will get tipped onto the floor, dumped onto the floor. Staff will inspect it for contents, figure out what they can separate out. If there's anything in there, like batteries or whatnot, that needs to be pulled out before it gets further processed. They'll use equipment to pick through it. They might even use labor to hand pick through it. Again, at 100 tons a day, it's pretty low for a facility, so they're really able to spend the time to go through the material and get out the most recyclable materials as possible, and anything that is suspect that wouldn't want to go through any type of further processing.
And then worst case scenario, let's say there's a spark created by one of these ion batteries. Then what happens next?
Sometimes it just sparks and that's it.
And does the fire suppression system go off?
Nope.
Okay, what if there's a fire?
Then the fire suppression system will go off. There's, equipment will have all the fire extinguishers in it, and it will be extinguished.
Thank you.
So we had a public hearing a couple of weeks back, and immediately after that, within a week or two, we had a fire in the nearby town. I don't know if you heard. It was outside. Smoke could be seen from towns wide, black smoke, thick smoke. As you can imagine, as the council members, we've gotten tons of phone calls, tons of emails, and this is a big concern. What's in that smoke? What are people breathing in? So even if it's contained, it's in a building, it's still going to billow smoke out in the area.
Sure, yeah, with any fire, that's a concern. Yeah, I think I read about that. I think it was an outdoor composting facility, so it was leaf and yard waste?
No.
No?
So.
Okay.
And Councilor
Different
Janick, in all fairness, apples and oranges, metal scrapyard.
Members of
and
the public,
C&D
please listen.
And C&D, two different materials, two different sources, totally different. Most of the fires that happen around here have all been in metal-type facilities without the construction debris. In Tiverton, General Auto, it's the same thing that happened in Westport last week, right? So cars, batteries, gasoline, tires, everything, it's just different. I understand the concerns about fire, but just apples to apples, oranges, it's different.
Okay. Any other
And
questions?
I just have one more. So we talked about having a licensed inspector who would be a worker, would be someone who works there. who would be inspecting every dumpster that comes in?
Yep.
That's your recommendation, or is that what you think would happen?
Yeah, that would be my recommendation based upon prior O&M plans that I have submitted to RIDEM. That's accepted normal practice.
Okay, so if we're under any kind of requirements by RIDEM to come out and do inspections, and we know they're limited, they're not going to be there every day, every week, every month, or maybe once a year if we're lucky. Have you had experience with RIDEM in any of the other Rhode Island facilities, and what their response has been, and if they do like preventative looks at places?
I'm not sure of their internal inspection schedules, but it's up to the facility to do their own operations and maintenance and operate in accordance with their plans and their license and all their permits.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the expert?
So that inspector that we're mentioning, or licensed personnel, that's not mandatory to be in the facility? It's just a recommendation?
It is not, correct, yep. It's good practice for these facilities because of the types of materials that come in.
And so if you were making an application to RIDEM to get one of these facilities approved, would you
Yep.
put that in your best practices management plan?
Absolutely.
And I'll also add that this council can specifically tonight write in the ordinance that will be a requirement rather than a recommendation. You know, this council has that ability as part of this deliberative process.
Councilor Perry.
I just have one question. Is there another facility anywhere in this area like this one?
All C&D. I believe Vinagro's facility in Johnston is a C&D processing facility. The Quonset one is just transfer. That's a rail facility. In Massachusetts, there's a facility in New Bedford, which is a mixed C&D processing and MSW facility. That might be the next closest.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Paul.
Thank you, and I can appreciate the state-of-the-artness of what is proposed. One of the questions I have, most of them were answered, the holding system. It's hard to not seeing a physical plan here. What would the liquid holding system be capacity-wise?
For the
Proposed facility.
interior, for the floor drains, typically a 2,000-gallon tight tank is adequate. The materials coming in are dry, so it's not like MSW where it could contain more liquid. The atomized misting system that would be used for dust control pretty much vaporizes or just gets absorbed into the materials. So there isn't a lot of anticipated water generation.
So you brought something up as far as the material coming in being dry. If material comes in wet, or you pick up a wet dumpster, is that being rejected, sent to Johnston, or? I guess I'm kind of asking Ryan slash.
Depends what's in it.
I understand that wet sheetrock is useless to him. Having just experienced a house fire, I had 2 dumpsters full of wet sheetrock that just went straight to a landfill, not a processing facility.
Yep.
Because it's of no use.
Right.
But touching on that line of a 2,000 proposed catch basin system, what would the suppression system be? Would it be water, or are we looking at something similar to a gas station where essentially the fire is choked out versus thousands of gallons of water potentially being put on it?
It would likely be water, but we would hire a fire suppression specialist to design a system for the facility that would be adequate and appropriate.
That's one of my concerns. I mean, we've got a lot of talk about Stafford Pond, and I understand that this facility can be graded away. Even with watershed being graded away, the runoff's got to go somewhere. It might not go directly to Stafford Pond, but we only have one Stafford Pond. An overflow system or a catch basin system within the facility, being able to hold 2,000 gallons, how much water do you guys put on? I mean, I've been to fires where we're putting tens of thousands of gallons of water on it. That's going to overflow that system in a matter of 20 minutes, if not less. But the other major concern I had, Councilor Medeiros also expressed, I was initially under the impression that this was just your dumpsters coming in. So I do share that concern of other facilities being able to dump as well. And I understand that you pretty much develop a business relationship with these people, and hopefully there's a trust involved, but that can be tricky too.
And, you know, the facility owner has the right to reject loads, repeat offenders, you know, someone that doesn't follow the rules or is always bringing in materials that aren't acceptable. So as the operator, they have a lot of play. And, you know, I think there is some benefits to, you know, the local area and the residents, short-term and long-term. Short-term being having a facility so close by, you know, for the do-it-yourselfers that are doing their own work at home. You know, they have an outlet nearby. They don't have to drive, you know, to Johnston or up to New Bedford to get rid of materials.
Laura, I have one final question, if I may. A lot has been discussed here about potential environmental harms, but are there environmental benefits of this type of facility?
Well, yeah, for recycling, absolutely.
Speak to those for a moment.
You know, I mentioned earlier that, you know, Massachusetts, Connecticut, the rest of New England states are export states, and you guys down here in Rhode Island, we're lucky to have the central landfill, and we need to preserve that capacity. And so having facilities such as this to process and remove recyclable material and divert it from the landfill stream is a long-term benefit. You know, right now, if that landfill didn't exist, tipping fees for everyone to get rid of their general waste would triple. So, you know, environmentally, it's a great project. We need more facilities like this to find beneficial reuses of our waste.
And based on everything you've reviewed to date, you know, visiting the site, understanding its location, and your familiarity with the regulations, if best management practices are followed, could a site be operated safely here?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. If there's no more testimony, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And given that this is a public hearing and we do have a number of people still signed up to speak, unless there was anything else.
No, just if I might have 1 minute following.
Absolutely.
Only a minute after the public comment. Thank you.
All right, so first up on our list is Scott Burns. So I'm going to go through the people that have signed up first, and then anybody who wants to speak after that. Obviously, the public hearing's still open. Yes. Mr. Burns, name and address for the record, even though I know where you live.
Scott Burns, 117 Neck Road, Tiverton. And my wife and I have lived in Tiverton now for 47 years. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of David Carden, who has prepared a statement for you people. David couldn't be in the country today. He's known to many of you. He's been helpful to the town in terms of drafting ordinances and making sure that things are done particularly well in some instances. And he's one of America's leading litigators. He had headed for many years the Jones Day litigation practice. He, in recent years, while he's been living in Tiverton, get ready for this one, was the extraordinary and plenipotentiary representative of the United States to the Southeast Asian Nation Commission. And I've never known anyone who is both extraordinary and plenipotentiary. But Dave is a remarkable guy, outstanding litigator, and someone who's very thoughtful. I've worked with him on this statement, and I support everything he says. And he is very disappointed that he can't be here to share this with you himself. Dear council members, I write to oppose the proposed sale of 7 lots of the planned development park approximating 7.63 acres to RD Recycling for a construction, processing, and demolition facility, quote, the recycling facility. My opposition is based on multiple grounds, including that there being no evidence the town council has done the necessary due diligence prior to entering into a transaction that has the potential to adversely impact the health and well-being of our community. The principal grounds for my oppositions are as follows. 1, potential impact of on the Tiverton water supplies. The proposed recycling facility is located fewer than 2,000 feet from Tiverton's public drinking water supply, Stafford Pond. Despite this proximity of the proposed facility to the pond, there is no evidence that the council has consulted with environmental consultants, engineers, and hydrologists to truly understand the risk of the pollution that the facility represents to the town of Tiverton. I'm aware that only a small portion of the proposed facility is in the Tiverton watershed overlay protection district. But as the council is very well aware, the overlay district is based entirely on topography and slopes, not on groundwater. Stafford Pond is spring-fed by groundwater and has no meaningful tributaries. As the council also is well aware, groundwater contamination can travel miles. Any pollution arising from the recycling facility is likely to impact Stafford Pond and other groundwater supplies. Yet inexplicably, it appears that no analysis of this risk has been performed. 2, amendment of the zoning ordinance would allow the establishment of additional recycling facilities. The contract of sale to RD Recycling stipulates the council will amend its zoning code to allow the recycling facility, but amending the town's zoning ordinance would not only enable the facility planned by RD Recycling, it would create the high possibility of additional processing facilities being established in the future. The council cannot spot zone a use. Once a use is permitted, even by special use, any parcel in that zone that meets the criteria may become a recycling facility. Multiple facilities would magnify the potential for harm such facilities represent. The council may believe that because the town owns most of the remaining land in the planned development park, it could prevent future recycling operations. But the town has no control over subsequent buyers from current or future owners. And given the lack of remaining capacity at the state's Johnston landfill, it is likely that the town could have shell buyers seeking to acquire land in the planned development park for resale to recycling operations. While many other communities in Rhode Island understandably have prohibited such uses, the council will be going in the opposite direction, making it clear that Tiverton could be an open for business with those who wish to dump their trash in our town. Why would the council do this, especially not having done any environmental due diligence? 3, abdication of responsibility to protect the public health and safety. The special use criteria in the proposed zoning amendment is primarily a regurgitation of RIDEM's solid waste C&D permitting requirements. But Rhode Island DEM does not control Tiverton zoning for good reason. Before Rhode Island DEM issues a solid waste permit, the use must be permitted by local municipal zoning. The principle inherent in this requirement is that a municipality must determine, based on its own evaluation of the specific local attributes of the zone, that the use can be safely supported and does not pose a risk to public health, safety, and welfare. The few additional protections established by the council, presumably to satisfy this responsibility, are not meaningful. They include limiting the size of the facility, the tonnage that can be delivered to the site for the first 5 years, and the timing of the deliveries. Notice regarding the delivery of hazardous material with no specification as to what happens if it is being delivered, and a traffic study. None of these requirements address the critical health and safety risks posed by the project. They seem to be more of an afterthought than a critical assessment designed to protect the public. Making matters worse, Rhode Island DEM statewide regulations are baseline minimum standards. Each of the state's 39 cities and towns are allowed and expected to either prohibit a use or set additional requirements based on their own local conditions. Thus, relying on Rhode Island DEM's permitting process to justify the proposed zoning amendments and to ensure the safety of Tiverton's residents is an abdication of the council's responsibility to make its own assessment whether the use proposed by R&D recycling would endanger the public health. I've heard the council has sought information from the EPA through RIDM and from the trade association representing recycling companies in order to inform its decision. There is nothing in the record to confirm that these approaches have occurred. However, even if they have, it's difficult to take them seriously. The EPA has abandoned virtually all oversight over many critical environmental matters, including climate change. As for seeking information from a trade association representative, having practiced law for 50 years, it is hard to believe that anyone would think trade associations are objective sources of information for purposes of making decisions or anything concerning their members, for anything other than supporting their members. For these reasons, none of these sources of information, if they were sought, are trustworthy, and none would absolve the council of doing its hard work of getting the facts needed to make a truly informed decision. This merely would be fig leaves to cover the glaring failure of the council to do its job. Examples of what can happen when councils abdicate their responsibility abound. The council no doubt is aware that there are dozens of examples where Rhode Island DEM has permitted uses that ultimately cause harm to the public because a municipality has failed to do its part in ensuring public safety. This lesson was learned again recently with regard to the RIDEM air quality permitting concerning the proposed crematorium on North Main Road. Finally, it would be unwise for the council to rely on RIDM's underfunded and understaffed compliance and enforcement divisions. There is a long history of problematic debris and waste facilities in the state. It takes often years of violation notices and legal action to close errant facilities or to bring them into compliance, and longer still to remediate the harm they've done. Meanwhile, Tiverton citizens are at risk. 4, fire risk. At a public hearing on July 14th, the Tiverton resident who retired as the Assistant Deputy State Fire Marshal spoke at length regarding the risk of fires at recycling facilities, including his personal experience with the notorious TLA Pondview recycling facility. In just the past year, there have been several multi-alarm fires at various recycling facilities in southeastern New England, which took multiple days to extinguish. Here are some examples. Resource Recycling, Roxbury, Mass. E.L. Harvey Waste Recycling Services, New Bedford. One Way Recycling, Taunton. XL Recycling, Westport, Mass. Tiverton Fire Department supported and provided assistance. Rhode Island Recycled Metals in Providence on July 24th. 5, conflict with abutters. I understand the town has entered into an agreement with Jim Long to expand the Longplex Sports Complex into a multi-building campus. In addition to the existing sports league and tournament building, there are buildings planned on both sides of Progress Way. They will include a high-end car vault, showroom, and private owners club, a 2-rink hockey facility, a top golf-style driving range, and a hotel to accommodate visitors, players, coaches, families, and spectators. It's contemplated that these facilities will be situated to allow users to walk among the buildings. Permitting dump trucks hauling 100 tons per day on Progress Way would threaten the safety of these users, as well as be a noxious presence in what would otherwise be a beautiful campus-like environment that provides a wonderful amenity to the residents of our town. The proposed sale threatens to do harm to Mr. Long's project, which constitutes a significant investment in our town and which would provide much-needed tax revenue. Of course, this harm would be magnified should future recycling operations be established pursuant to the special use authorization the council is contemplating. Finally, if the sale is approved and there is litigation, it would shine a spotlight on why the council made the decision it did. That spotlight would make clear the council didn't take the time and care necessary to do the job for which it was elected to do, which is to protect the health, safety, and well-being of Tiverton residents. Respectfully submitted, Ambassador David Cardin. And the only thing I would add is, if we contaminate our water, it's lights out for Tiverton. We just can't take risks that we don't have to take. And there's no possible way that this is something that's of compelling interest to the town of Tiverton.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns, before I call the next one, I would just question whether or not Rhode Island DEM can control zoning, as we've seen from the state of Rhode Island, and multiple housing bills which have effectively nullified most of our zoning. So one small clarification for the ambassador. Next up, Nancy Robinson.
God, I'm expected to follow him.
You can just say ditto if you like.
Ditto.
Name and address, please.
Nancy Robinson, 70 Briggs Lane, Tiverton, Rhode Island. I did have a whole thing, but he touched on just about what I was going to say. But I don't agree. In a perfect world, this might work. It's not a perfect world. There's too many variables that can go wrong. You know, we already have, Eagleville Road looks like an apocalypse. I don't understand why anyone would want to put a facility such as that in this beautiful town. I don't get it. If it's for tax revenue, for the minuscule amount of money it's not even worth it. And I don't think anybody's going to want that, to save on taxes. Nobody's going to want that. I know I don't. I'd rather pay, I know it's going up, but I would rather pay what it is now. I don't, there's just too much that can go wrong. So, I just need people to care about this. I care about the children, I care about the land, I care about the water, the wildlife. Mike, thank God for you. And George, I can never say his last name right.
Elzebek.
Yes, him. You know, good guys. I mean, they care. We need more of them. We need more people that give a crap on all this. I don't want Tiverton to have to change its name from the town of Tiverton to the city of Tiverton, because that's what we go through. This is what's going to happen. Okay? That's it. I was less than a minute, I think.
Thank you. Tom Ramatowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tom Ramatowski, 17 Bodwin Road, Tiverton. And again, for the record, I don't live anywhere near this. I'm in North Tiverton, but I am a North Tiverton Fire District water customer, so I'm concerned about the pond, obviously. A Couple of new things since last time that I think we should bring up that haven't been brought up. First, we had a resolution to a long-running court case for something very similar to this. It was a waste processing site that had applied back at least 10, 15 years ago, and the court recently ruled on that. That project was going to be very similar in what they were going to process, with the one exception that they were also going to do single-stream recycling, which is like personal stuff that we would put out in our little bins and process that too. But otherwise, very, very similar. 2 large buildings, 25,000 square feet buildings, so all the processing could be done inside, and they listed a bunch of different environmental safeguards that would be in place. The planning board at the time in 2013 ruled unanimously to deny that application. They wrote that the applicant failed to present sufficient credible evidence to show that the application is consistent with several provisions of the Tiverton Comprehensive Community Plan, and failed to demonstrate that the application would adequately address potential pollution and groundwater concerns. They also noted that it was incompatible with Tiverton's rural and small town character, and was also incompatible with the abutting residential uses of the property where this was going to go. The court, when it made its ruling, echoed these comments and supported the planning board and ruled in favor of the town. The judge noted that the applicant carried the burden to establish that the waste and recycle facility is reasonable, and that the concerns that were raised were of no concern or adequately addressed. I'm not sure we've seen much of that at all here. The judge also said that the applicant failed to show that the proposed project was consistent with the comprehensive plan. We haven't heard really anything from them stating that this is consistent with our comprehensive plan, which is supposed to guide the development of the town, and people are buying property, building houses, living in neighborhoods with that plan in mind. And to change it here, there, and all the time for 1 or 2 applications like this is not a good policy for the town to do. I've read that plan, like I said, cover to cover. And there's nothing in it that says we want this kind of development in town. Nothing like that. There are vague things about increasing the tax base and things like that, but I think evidence was presented last time that we're not going to get anywhere near a bump in tax revenue from this kind of a business. We have businesses like this in town already. We can look at what they pay versus the amount of land they occupy and what they do, and it's equivalent to a couple of small houses. That's it. If we have to police these things, it's going to be a net drain on taxes, because we're going to have to pay to have people come in and make sure that they're following the rules that they said they'd follow. So I don't see any advantage here at all from a tax perspective. Another thing that bothers me is that there's nothing in the record at all that is from RIDEM or some other group that says, yes, we're going to come here, we're going to police this, we agree, we have the people, we'll be there 3 times a week, once a week, whatever the schedule is going to be. There's nothing like that. And yet, what's proposed envisions that someone or something or some third party is going to be looking at this to make sure that whatever's brought in is properly inspected, properly policed, to protect us from dangers of fires, dangers of pollution, and things like that. But right now, there's nothing on the record anywhere that shows anyone's really going to do that. The close proximity to our reservoir, that's been mentioned before. The proper controls are critical for making sure that we don't get hazardous dust, we don't get things like that in there, whether it's from, quote, clean material or dirty material. Doesn't matter. Some dust particles could be considered clean, but once they're in the water, they can react and cause problems. This development would also be inconsistent with what's already in the industrial park. We've mentioned Longplex and businesses like that. This type of thing, this is a heavy, dirty, industrial type business. What we're getting up there, what is paying the bulk of the bills tax-wise up there, are what I would call clean businesses, like Longplex. That area is sewered and it has water. That's the kind of stuff that clean businesses or hotels or things like that would be really compatible with that area would like to see. This type of business doesn't really need that per se for what they're doing, but if they had a fire or they had something like that, they had to draw on the water system there or stuff drained into the sewer, they could overwhelm the system and cause problems. So I think we have to keep that in mind as well. Let's see. There was talk in the plan, or in some of this, that it would bring in jobs and bring employment to the town, but these types of businesses don't employ large numbers of people. We don't know for sure if anybody from the town would even be employed for it. And like I said before, there's very little, if any, tax revenue, and it could actually be a drain on us if we're not careful. The large trucks that may be bringing in tons of stuff on these roads, most of the roads up there are town roads, not state roads, so if they get beaten up and they need to be repaved often, that's going to be on us. And I think the bottom line, if I'm going to summarize, so I don't take a lot of time, is there are two questions here that you need to answer. The first one is this proposed change to the zoning rules that would allow these kind of things in town, is that in the best interest of the town? We have to forget all the specifics, what they propose to do and all of that. The bottom line question is this change to allow this type of use in our town, which right now is forbidden, is that really what we want? Is that really consistent with our plans? Is that what we want to do? If you decide yes, then there's a second question, which is, are the specifics that are in the proposed language sufficient to really protect us, protect the public, the town, from the potential dangers that this type of an operation presents? Again, it's not clean light industry. It's a heavy, dirty type of industry. There could be issues. There have been fires. There have been problems in other places. We don't know for sure what would happen here. Maybe it would be a perfect record, but there's definitely potential for that. So are these safeguards in place? And if we do write safeguards in, who's going to be the police? Who's going to enforce them? Is that going to be a town function? I don't think we can depend on DEM. My personal experience is we can't depend on DEM. They ignore letters for people pointing out specific violations of wetlands for which they're responsible for. I don't think they have the people to do it. So all these things need to be considered for this before a decision's made. And I think clearly when I look at this, I see it as something that's not desirable for the town and could only lead to problems down the line. So I would recommend and urge you not to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Ephraim.
Karen Ephraim, 74 North Christopher Avenue. Well, we're here again, and I'm still waiting to hear from each member of this town council, the town solicitor, and the town administrator regarding my question, what will we do if we can't drink the water? To pass this zoning ordinance will go directly against the goals laid out in the state's Land Use 2025 Executive Summary. I have a copy right here that I can give to you all. Page 7 on it states, Rhode Island will balance the needs of its people with the protection of its environmental resources. Page 14 states, promote traditional neighborhoods and also protect rural character. Lastly, page 16 states, protect drinking water and avoid negative environmental impacts from development. It also goes against Rhode Island General Laws, Title 46, Waters and Navigation, Chapter 46-15.3, Public Drinking Water Supply System Protection, Section 46-15.3-1.1, the legislative findings. I have a copy right here, and if you'd like, I can read it thoroughly, or I can just simply give you a copy.
Copy would be phenomenal.
Okay, excellent.
In the interest of getting us to eventually have a discussion of our own, yes.
Absolutely. A construction and demolition debris processing facility's end goal is to decrease what ends up at a landfill, but the very process material goes through to get separated to a recyclable state is anything but environmentally friendly and would place our town's drinking water at severe risk of contamination since such facilities do not have as stringent safeguards as liners in place as landfills do. Hazardous materials can seep into the soil and water table and supply, therefore endangering Stafford Pond and the surrounding ecosystem. If that isn't convincing enough, fires involving construction debris have been shown to alter soil chemistry, reducing its ability to absorb contaminants and increasing the risk of long-term pollution. With such a facility being proposed approximately half a mile from our drinking water source with a high fire risk, it's clear that this zoning use should remain prohibited. While I applaud the planning board, I'm not sure if they actually submitted this letter to you, but I know when I attended last week's meeting, they had the intent. So based on that meeting, while I applaud the planning board for urging you to conduct more due diligence on the matter when this council asked the planning board to render an opinion, which one would think they would have conducted such a deep dive that they are now placing back on you, are you still adamant that there are benefits that can outweigh the risks to justify the taxpayer expense you will cause by conferring with state agencies such as RIDEM and Department of Health? If yes, what are they? Please tell the public right now while you address the question we would all like to hear the answer to. What will we do if we can't drink the water? I'm happy to pause so you can all answer that question.
This is time for testimony to us.
Okay.
But for the record, Ms. Ephraim, I have zero communication from you asking that question. So if you did send it, please send it.
Then you must be admitting then that you didn't read the letter that I submitted. That's dated June 9th.
It was 600 pages.
12 pages was the letter with about 8 enclosures to help support that all the points that I made. Many points which other people have also said tonight.
Well, please continue.
It's your responsibility to read everything that comes across your email. It really is.
Mrs. Ephraim, I just want to add, and I believe it was actually made part of the record, you and I did attempt to correspond. But once you shared my email with the rest of the council, you now put us all at risk of a running quorum. So I had to communicate to you again that our conversation had to stop. But I had no problem conversing with you until you did that.
Please continue.
If you choose to pursue additional expertise, then I highly recommend you seek the expertise of a geological expert to assist in the evaluation of soil and other environmental conditions, and a hazmat professional who has experience with the remediation efforts. But haven't we already spent enough taxpayers on legal cases? How can you justify wanting to pass this proposed zoning ordinance when Eagleville Realty LLC wanted to do something similar, where it was reported in the Secana Times article here, which Mr. Ramatowski also referenced. So lastly, I ask, hasn't this town had enough of entertaining a proposal that is incompatible to the town and state law? Thank you.
Thank you. Gordon Craig. Come on up, Chip.
Gordon Craig, 57 North Christopher Avenue, Tiverton. Thank you, Mr. President and other council members. Certainly there's been a lot of information that's been once again discussed tonight. And I do concur with a lot of things that have been said so far. Just want to add a few things and just put a spotlight on the fires. There have been 4 fires locally in our area in the last 4 months at sites similar to this, and one of them in town. So it's not if, it's when there'll be a fire in the industrial park if you let this go through. And to support that is some of the testimony that the engineer gave, which was talking about site inspectors, thermal imaging, fire suppression, and all the things that go along with high hazardous materials that are entering these facilities. So please, again, I urge the town to take the time to do the due diligence, do the proper vetting of everything that's going on with this application. And further, the town, we haven't really talked about this tonight, but it was talked about at the last meeting, was the traffic associated with that Fish Road Industrial Park interchange. There's an application for housing right across the street from the entrance that's currently going through the process of getting an application put through. Then there's the other housing that's up on Fish Road further north of VD that's under construction right now, and the other facilities that are being put into the Longplex and the expansion of Longplex. So that that area by the police department is just going to be a very large congestion. And if you add trucks with dumpsters into this, especially if it can be increased over time, that's another major concern. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Renee Jones. You'd signed up to speak, Ms. Jones. Yes. Oh, I'm very sorry. I'll speak up.
I'm sorry. Since May. It's ridiculous. Okay. I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of concern about having experts be talking about this issue. And I just want to remind people that I'm a licensed registered occupational therapist who has worked for 18 years in the Westport school system with children that had a variety of diagnoses, including mild dysgraphia, ADHD, and severe autism. For 10 years, I have worked in the Fall River Early Intervention Program, helping children from birth to 3 with a variety of diagnoses from Down syndrome, motor dysfunction, and failure to thrive. But perhaps my most critical case, and this is something that was very personal to me, was the fact that my child was diagnosed at the age of 2 with lead poison. She was not somebody else's child, she was my own. We live in a house built in 1894, and as you know, any house built before 1970 should be assumed to have some lead-based paint. Even if it has been encapsulated with lead-free paint, the danger still exists below the surface. She was 2 when she was diagnosed with a dangerously high lead level. This required painful injections in each of her legs for several months. And as any parent would, we monitored her carefully for her developmental milestones to make sure there had been no long-lasting effects. But what was interesting about this time, as I went through the program with my daughter, was I learned how lead was transmitted. As I sat in the hospital waiting for my daughter to get her injections, I heard from construction workers who were bringing their child to the hospital because they had brought the lead-based paint into their homes, on their clothing, on their shoes, in their cars, because they had been working in places that had lead. They brought it home to their children, and these children were now in the lead program. Plumbers handling lead solder, and of course, house painters. All of them were people that I saw in the lead program at Rhode Island Hospital when I was taking care of my child. We had a problem because we couldn't understand why her lead level didn't drop. And it was only when we learned that the lead was still in our driveway from years before, people walking in and out on this gravel driveway, that the lead dust was still there. And in fact, to this day, I make everybody take off their shoes when they come into my house, even though it has been asphalted over. And it was only when we had asphalt put on that driveway that her lead levels started to drop. The Rhode Island Department of Health, in their lead poisoning information for parents article states, anyone can be exposed to lead, but children younger than 6 are most at risk. Even small amounts of lead exposure can negatively affect a child's development and cause serious health issues, including learning disabilities, reduced IQ, and shortened attention spans, the type of kids that I worked with in school. Another article from Rhode Island Kids Count, which is another program from the state, the children are most susceptible to the toxic effects of lead because they absorb lead more readily than adults and have inherent vulnerability due to developing central nervous systems. Even at very low levels, lead exposure can cause irreversible damage, including slowed growth and development, learning disabilities, behavioral problems, and neurological damage. In severe cases with a diagnosis of lead poisoning, the result can be seizures, comas, or even death. Why then would we allow this construction and demolition company to go into a space where its trucks will be carrying broken walls, windowsills, and doors that may be covered with lead paint that is no longer encapsulated. And they will be driving through streets where Longplex is, where children are crossing to go to activities, or where children in nearby schools may be playing outside. It's only a very small amount of money a year, and quite frankly, it's not worth it. I have an article that states that we're very lucky in Tiverton because there are very few lead-based cases in our town. But by bringing in demolition trash from around Rhode Island and probably Massachusetts and places like the towns that are listed as high-risk towns are Newport, Central Falls, Providence, Warren, and Pawtucket. These are all places where there are where kids have high rates of lead poisoning. And we'll be probably getting the trash from there. These towns all report lead exposure for entering kindergarten classes, and we will probably be getting their trash. I know he has described what he can do, but as parents, we did our very best to try and protect our children, and we still had lead dust in our house. You cannot eliminate the danger. There is no reason for this. It does not bring tax dollars, and we have schools and families nearby. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph De Silva. And one quick question before you go. Somebody else signed up directly after you. I have no idea what the name is, so when we get there, hopefully. So, anyways, by all means.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the council. My name is Joseph De Silva, and I live at 32 North Christopher Avenue in Tiverton. I'm speaking, I am speaking tonight as a resident, a taxpayer, and a property owner in this town. I also serve as an elected member of the Brayton Woods Architectural Association, where I volunteered for 25 years safeguarding our community. First, pardon my, I have it electronic because I couldn't print it out, so bear with me. First, I want to thank you for your hard work, all of you, and your unwavering dedication and your service to our precious community. Thank you, and it can be thankless sometimes. Second, I want to say ditto to a lot of the public comment speakers, and emphasis on that first speaker's robust legal arguments that oppose this zoning change. I'm here tonight to ask you to vote no on the proposed zoning change. This change could take away important property rights, not just mine, but rights of more than 50 nearby homeowners. Right now, we have the right to equality sound levels in our community, peace and quiet in our neighborhood, which would be disrupted by loud truck traffic and heavy machinery. Air quality, clean air, which could be threatened by dust and toxins like lead or arsenic from construction demolition debris. As a member of the Brayton Woods Association, I also need to tell you that this zoning change goes against the values and the rules laid out in our bylaws. These bylaws protect our property values and the quality of life in our neighborhood, and this proposal puts both at risk. There's another serious concern, as the last speaker spoke about. Our elementary school is right near the area affected by this change. If you approve it, you put our children's health and safety at risk, and may even violate the conditions that allowed the school to be placed there in the first place. This could also have serious financial hardships on the town if determined to violate Department of Health and/or Department of Education requirements attached to that state funding that our community received. locating this toxic debris handling operation 1,600 feet from our drinking water supply may impact the majority of residents' water supply. Given the significance of this threat, it may require additional oversight on the town. This may impact town administrative costs in order to safeguard our water supply. In short, this zoning change harms homeowners and their property rights, threatens public health, safety, water supply, risks our children's well-being, and our schools' potential for future funding. On top of all that, it may be opening the door to lawsuits over property rights violations and others. As a resident of Tiverton, a voter, and someone who's been working for decades to protect our community, I respectfully ask you to vote no on this zoning change. Thank you for your time and your public service.
Thank you. I believe it's somebody named Charles. Carla?
Charles.
Oh, okay. Don't worry, I have awful writing too, so.
How are you?
Name and
Chuck
address,
Bradshaw, 64 T-Boat Lane, thank you. Ditto to everything that was said. I moved here 13 years ago from Attleboro. It turned into a city I didn't even recognize. Me and my wife were born there, and it just got destroyed, and it was so sad to see. I've been here 13 years, and this is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I said, I just wouldn't even want to build another house here, never mind a construction recycling facility. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Lawrence. Yes. You're the last one on the pre-written list, and then you're up.
Okay, Gail Lawrence, I guess you could read my name.
Your handwriting's
you.
better than Charles's.
All right, I got an A or something in handwriting anyway. So I have all of these notes, none of which are really going to be new to your ears, because I think everyone who came before me and everyone who spoke previously have made so many cogent points that I would be just fail to match them. But I guess I think more and more about the ordinance, the concern about creating this kind of ordinance, opening a floodgate. And I think, gentlemen, speaking of Attleboro, I went to Wakefield today, and I didn't recognize Wakefield today. So I want to tell you that you really hold a very important decision in your hands. And I think you are doing all you can, given how much information is now coming at you from all of us, some of it based on feelings that people have. Listening to Mrs. Jones, my heart just ached, because I too was a classroom teacher, and I too understand exactly what she's saying. And so I want us to think about the ordinance not being, a revision of the ordinance doesn't seem to make any sense to me, and I hope that's how you are coming down as well. This opens the floodgates. How could it not? And the other point I guess I wanted to make, somewhere on page 6 of the notes, is that I think as town officials, you are so definitely charged with the responsibility, and it's a weighty responsibility, to protect the health and safety of the residents of this community. And perhaps this particular project does not run amok in that way. But if something falls out of place in this particular project, we could have fires, we could have air pollution problems, we certainly could contaminate Stafford Pond. And everyone in this room knows that water is one of our scarcest resources in Tiverton. They are going to use misters, but if you have to use suppress a fire with tens of thousands of gallons of water, we just don't have that kind of water. I can't think anyone would say, oh yeah, we've got plenty of water. We don't. And right now we're in an acute drought. And so that doesn't help us either. So that's another consideration. And I know that it's hard to get so many letters and volumes of information, but today I went and looked about construction and demolition debris recycling facilities face several hazards, including exposure to hazardous materials, disease outbreaks, risks associated with landfilling, and they can impact both workers at the facilities and the surrounding environment and communities. And so I made a copy of this for you, and it is definitely short, abbreviated information. You'll be really happy to see that. It's only one page.
Thank you.
And I'd like that to just be distributed. And I guess the other point that I somewhere think I was going to make a point. Okay, so to my way of thinking, there is overwhelming evidence that this is not in the best interest of our town, and I want the council to seriously consider rescinding the purchase and sale agreement, dismissing any...
Can I just stop you there? Because I think this is a misnomer. This has come up a couple of times. The zoning change request was part of the purchase and sale agreement, but if, let's say hypothetically, we don't approve the zoning change,
It goes away?
He could waive that requirement on the purchase and sale and still purchase the property. So these are, this entire public hearing is about whether or not we should change the zoning ordinance based off of what the planning board sent us as the proposed zoning ordinance. And whether or not Mr. DeMello ends up purchasing the land is not connected to this at all if
Oh, it's
he
not
so
contingent
chooses.
upon.
That's one of his contingencies to close, but he could in theory waive that contingency and still purchase the land. So,
But he would not then have an ordinance that...
but then he wouldn't be able to build that facility, correct?
Yes, okay, but he could still purchase the
but-
land for an amusement park.
No,
That's
that's
no.
I didn't
Hypothetically
think this was
speaking,
allowed.
So any use that would be allowed in the industrial zone.
correct.
Any
All right,
use.
so...
He could build a competing Longplex on that property if he wanted to.
Oh, okay, well,
an example.
presumably he'd go through all the planning steps as well. Okay.
Correct.
So anyway, the bottom line is, please don't do this to our town.
I have a question.
Mr. Jobin is going to lose it if we don't let him speak.
Well, there's a stage 1 to this project and a stage 2, correct? So he can,
The dumpster business is already have been approved.
Right.
So he can store dumpsters and on that site, but he can't, that's separate from C and D. So,
Ms. Black, Mr. Jobin has been jumping out of his chair.
Go ahead, one before, guys. Well, first of all, I'd like Robert Jobin, Stafford Road, Tiverton, obviously. I'd like to congratulate everybody that spoke, and especially the engineer. You may think I'm absolutely crazy, but I congratulate the engineer for coming forward. Now, I'm going to be like Paul Harvey and tell you the rest of the story. She mentioned a few things about water runoff from rain and that type of thing with a small cistern. You have to ask yourself, number one, water runoff from rain is one thing. Cleaning from the inside of the facility is something else. Where does that wastewater go? I haven't heard that addressed. I think that's a question that you folks have to ask. Second thing was brought up by Mr. Paul. In firefighting activities, we don't flow hundreds of gallons, we flow thousands of gallons. And in a situation like this, it's hundreds of thousands of gallons if you're faced with a large fire. One of the things I heard was she wants to bring it indoors, as I understand.
it is indoors.
Okay. The rest of the story, you want Paul Harvey's rest of the story? Once you bring this indoors, and she said this, they're concerned about dust control. And every firefighter knows dust does not have an upper explosive limit or a lower explosive limit. Unlike gasoline, unlike diesel, they all have a limit where they will not ignite, either because they're too rich or too lean. Dust, you don't know. You do not know where that explosive limit is. Now, from personal experience, I don't want to get too deep into it, we had Inferno Pellet in the city of East Providence. For years, we were after them. They would take wood, turn it into pellets for pellet stoves. We had multiple issues there. They finally installed what was called the Cont system that would detect sparks, and it would shut down the machinery. But dust was everywhere in the building. Multiple alarms day in and day out. What ended up happening was there was a dust explosion. I was on duty that day. I was the chief responding to it. As I left Station 3, heavy smoke was coming from the roof. We got a report that one of the workers was blown 25 feet with that explosion. The building was sprinklered. It blew out a 6-inch riser out of the sprinkler system. So in the area that the explosion was, where the fire was, we had no fire suppression except for our guys. Now, what happens with a dust explosion? You know, usually there are multiple dust explosions because you shake the whole thing, there's dust everywhere. I never prayed so much at a fire. I had 125 firefighters at that scene, to give you an idea about dust explosions and the hazards with. Very hazardous for the firefighters, terribly hazardous for the firefighters. That's Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. We talked about wallboard. They want dry wallboard. A few years ago, I don't know if you recall, but China had put out a bunch of bad wallboard full of cyanide. There was a recall on it. How do we know what house that wallboard was in? Where is that going to show up? Is that going to show up in Tiverton at this recycled place? Consideration, we have no answers. Let me get a little bit deeper here. She talked about boundary for water runoff. The water runoff from a decent-sized fire like that is hundreds of thousands of gallons. We just had one in Tiverton on Eagleville Road, and I don't know how many tankers they brought in, but it was a lot, and they were there for 4 hours. So it just kind of reinforces what I initially mentioned with that. A few other things. Cleanup and remediation bonds. Is the city, or the town, excuse me, going to require a bond for them, a cleanup bond? If they go bankrupt, who's going to clean the area? It's going to be ultimately the town's responsibility. So is there going to be a bond that's going to be required? East Providence initially wanted an $800,000 bond, which they got for Pondview construction. I don't know if there's any thoughts of a bond. I think there should be with that. Dikes and berms. In East Providence, Pondview construction, because of the noise and dust, they were required to put in a berm around the plant. So eventually, if they stop moving more and more debris, just to keep the dust and the noise down, they're probably going to have a berm in that area. Okay. Talk about drop particles, getting back to the other part that I had mentioned before. They're talking about a misting and a spray system because that acknowledges the dust issues that I mentioned before. That water is now contaminated. How is that water going to be retrieved and sent out somewhere? Haven't heard a word about that. Okay, just for your own edification on that. Dry systems. I would tend to think the fire suppression system in the building will be a dry system because they mentioned the doors opening and closing. In the middle of winter, it's going to cause freezing of a wet system. Certainly the fire marshal in town, along with an FPA-1, could require a dry system, which is more expensive for them. But again, a dry system is not perfect. If they have an explosion, you cannot count on the fire suppression system in the building at that time, okay? Thermal imaging. She mentioned thermal imaging for sparks. Well, that's what we had at Infernal Pellet. It was called the Cont system. It would image sparks coming through the system, and it would shut the system down. It doesn't guarantee it's going to happen, hence we had the fire. You know, very large fire, very large response. Getting back to it, I had Providence, Pawtucket, Seekonk, East Providence, everything in East Providence plus more, and I believe Barrington there. So we had a huge, huge response to that. And again, just being a resident and living on the pond, I'm deathly afraid of the impacts to the pond for the town. I'm not here, you know, I could have been home talking to my wife tonight instead of all you folks, but here I am trying to protect the town, protect the residents of this town. I've seen it, I've experienced it. I wish if any of you folks have questions, come to me. I'll try to fill you in as to my experiences. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Black.
Mr. President, can I just ask one quick clarification question? Mr. Jobin, just to clarify, it was mentioned earlier by the attorney's team that Pondview was in Providence. It wasn't East Providence. Thank you.
It's in East Providence, that's correct.
Thank you.
Omega Pond is in East Providence, as you mentioned, so.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Thank you. Sally Black, 64 Broadview Drive. We'll be quick because I know you're busy. I've been up there myself. So the chief just mentioned all the things. So the last time he came, he submitted to the town clerk his 320 pages. So I had a copy made. I've read it twice. I might not be able to go to the meetings, but I have perfect attendance at all the meetings. I watch them sometimes twice. So I watched the planning board because I know you sent this to the planning board to give what you do. That's your job. So the first night of the planning board, they talked about this, and everyone made their statements around the table, and when you've done it long enough, you can count votes. You say, okay, this is a no, as I heard their statements. So a motion was made by Stu Hardy, seconded, to send a negative report to the town council because of all their concerns. All of a sudden, the vote was stopped by whoever, the planner, the lawyer. Somebody said, oh no, don't hurry, don't do this in haste. We'll come back next time and we'll have more information for you. So I've never seen that happen, because when a motion's on the table, motion's on the table. You vote it or you take it off. So then they came back the next time and they talked, and the vote was 4-3 positive, to send a positive recommendation to the council. So I called one of the members I'm very close to, and I chatted with him, and I said, I'm not telling you how to vote, I would never do that, but please explain to me how that could happen in 2 weeks. And he said to me, I made a terrible mistake, Sally. I said, well, if you made a mistake, the state gives us a remedy. You can reconsider your vote legally the next meeting if you're on the prevailing side. We all know that. So I go to the next meeting, and they're told they can't do that, which I don't understand, but that's what they were told. They said, the ship has sailed, you can't reconsider this vote. So the person I spoke to said, well, if I could vote tonight, my vote would be no. So that changed the vote from 4-3 for it to 4-3 against it. Not officially, because they couldn't officially vote. So they wrote a letter, and you know what that letter means? It was a nice letter. It means nothing. It has no standing, because they weren't allowed to vote. So I just want all the public and everyone to know that when the lawyer might say, like he said, first time we were here 2 or 3 times, the planning board said yes, the planning board agreed with this, that holds a lot of power. The planning board did not say yes. The planning board said no. The last thing I'll say, I had the same training as Mrs. Jones. I'm a special ed teacher from Fall River, Massachusetts from 1967. More credits and everything else and training than I can talk about. But I know that in the end, you 7 sitting here, 7 of you people that I've worked with for years, are in charge of these over 1,000 students and staff. I counted these out. It's more than 1,000. And you're going to be in charge of their future. Because if they get any kind of lead poisoning or anything else, or can't concentrate because of the noise, I won't go over it. All the things that have been brought up, they're your responsibility. And I want you to remember that when you vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this is still a public hearing. Obviously, we want to hear from all of you, but it is already almost 9 o'clock at night. So if there is anybody else who would like to add anything to this discussion, I would ask that it be something novel, and also as it pertains to the specific ordinance that's in front of us. So,
Good evening,
take it
Sean
away.
Muldoon, 21.
Sorry, the solicitor needs to add something.
So
here.
I just want to make a clarifying statement. As you know, under the law, when an ordinance is proposed, the planning board has a certain amount of time to give us a recommendation. And I was not the lawyer for that meeting, and I'll check the minutes of the meeting, but I believe what the problem was is that the time frame for their recommendation had already passed. So that's why the vote cannot be changed. It's not that we're preventing someone from changing a vote. There's a time limit in the statute that says that you have to make a decision by such a date and send it to the to the council. And I believe, again, I was not the lawyer at the planning board, but I believe that's what happened. So I don't want anyone to suggest that legal counsel somehow squashed the vote. That's not what we do. We make sure we follow the law.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
Good
Name and
evening,
address for the
Sean
record, please.
Muldoon, 21 North Christopher. I'd like to thank Laura for coming out tonight and presenting an image of a state-of-the-art building with all the safety systems in place. She did not speak of maintenance of the systems, which is a concern. I've formerly gone to New Bedford Waste in New Bedford and dumped. The inspectors that used to be on the floor when you'd first dump there were no longer at the end before they closed down before the fire they've had recently. I think it was back in April or May. There were no doors. There was no plastic vapor barrier hanging in the openings any longer. The safety standards were gone. And I have questions of the type of licenses the people that stand on the floor would carry to ensure the safety of the people. Because any time I ever backed in with a dump trailer or my dump truck, stuff was dumped on the floor and a 50,000-pound machine just pushed it into the pile. It was never sorted, it was never inspected, it was never looked at. The biggest concern of mine was raised by Mr. DeMello's attorney, and I'm not going to quote him because I don't remember his exact verbiage, but it was something along the lines of, if the best management practices were utilized, could this operation be operated safely? That's up for you guys to decide and manage. Thank you.
Thank you. And Susan Anderson, if I could just make one other statement here about, because I know we've had a lot of discussions about this proposed facility or what the vision of this may be. What's in front of us is the ordinance, which would allow, if it was passed, would allow the applicant to go back, produce a master plan, go through the entire planning process, and as written in front of us today, would have to meet certain special use permit criterias to be, performance standards, to be even able to move forward with that process. So, take it away.
Thank you. Susan Anderson, Main Road. Last time, I talked about the comprehensive plan and what the business park, what the comprehensive plan states that the business park should have, the types of businesses and everything like that. The diversification of the town tax base. I am not going to talk about that tonight. Instead, I am going to talk about the zoning ordinance.
Thank you.
Article 4, Section 19, Planned Development Park, PDP. Purpose, these are quotes from the zoning ordinance, which has the PDP in it since 2012. There is a need for a planned development park in the town of Tiverton, which may emphasize industrial, technology, scientific, medical, renewable energy, commerce, or office uses, and that such uses are in accordance with the Tiverton Comprehensive Community Plan. The permitted uses that is in Article 4, Section 19, Planned Development Park. Motel or hotel, professional office and bank, credit union or office building. Restaurant or entertainment use. Retail business excluding sales with open lot storage, adult book video store, or gasoline filling station. Any facility primarily engaged in the creation or operation of information technology or financial services. Any facility primarily engaged in scientific, medical, or technological research. Any indoor recreational facility, and any wholesale business or storage per Article 4, Section 12. A construction and demolition processing facility is not one of these permitted uses, nor does it meet the purpose of a PDP because it is not in accordance with the comprehensive plan, as I stated in the last meeting. Prohibited uses, as stated in Article 4, Section 19, Planned Development Park. All prohibited uses described in Article 4, Section 15 shall be prohibited in a PDP. Some which pertain to a C&D facility are C, any industrial use which is obnoxious by reason of the emission of odors, gases, dust, noise, or vibration, or by reason of danger of fire or explosion or of hazards to health. See Article 13 for standards and enforcement. F, incinerators or hazardous waste management facilities. L, open lot storage of junk, scrap, salvage materials, construction equipment, and/or materials not associated with the wholesale business, see Section 12B, as determined by the building official/zoning officer, and as defined, junk, any cast-off, damaged, discarded, junked, obsolete, salvaged, scrapped, unusable, worn out, or wrecked object, thing, or material, including but not limited to those composed in whole or in part of asphalt, brick, carbon, cement, plastic, or other synthetic substance, fiber, glass, plaster, plaster of Paris, rubber, terracotta, wool, cotton, cloth, canvas, wood, metal, sand, organic matter, or other substance. Now, according to the description of this C&D facility in this ordinance, it will not comply with these prohibited uses within the PDP. Prohibited activities in a PDP, as stated in Article 4, Section 19, Plan Development Park. Number 1, no materials, manufactured items, supplies, or equipment shall be stored in any area on a lot except inside a closed building or behind a visual barrier screening such areas from the view of adjoining property and/or a street. In addition, no portable structures, including but not limited to trailers, storage units, or similar objects, shall be permitted within the PDP except during periods of construction. Number 2, there shall be no excessive noise, dust, smoke, fumes, odors, vibrations, glare, vermin, or liquid or solid waste which is not kept in appropriate containers. There shall be no uses that will result in unsafe or hazardous conditions such as toxic or noxious materials, fire, and explosion hazard materials, or radiation hazard materials. And according to this description of this C&D facility as in the zoning ordinance, and of others in the area, it will not comply with these prohibited activities within the PDP. I have a copy. I've put the comprehensive plan that I quoted last month. I also have the zoning ordinance that I've quoted tonight.
Thank you. Name and address, please, for the record.
Paul Ferland, Administrator of Community Utilities, City of Fall River, One Government Center. I have a letter here that I'd like to add to the record. I'll read it into the record and won't go on, so that try to keep it short. I am writing to express a strong support in the protection of Stafford Pond watershed within Tiverton, Rhode Island. We urge the continued vigilance and protective measures to preserve the critical resource. Stafford Pond is not only natural treasure for Tiverton and Fall River, but also vital source of drinking water and habitat for diverse plants, animal species. Its watershed plays a key role in filtration of pollutants, regulated water flow, sustaining the ecological health of the pond. Once compromised, these benefits are costly, often impossible to restore. As you may know, Stafford Pond is included within the watershed of South Watuppa Pond. Although South Watuppa Pond is not part of the North Watuppa drinking water supply, which is the primary drinking water supply for the city and surrounding communities, South Watuppa is listed as an emergency supply for the North Watuppa Pond, and we can flow water whenever we need to from south to north. The town of Tiverton, Westport, Fall River entered into a intermunicipal agreement to work together to better the water quality of South Watuppa Pond and its watershed. This includes Stafford Pond. The town, the water district, and the state over the years had made great improvements to do just that. Unfortunately, the watershed faces growing pressures from development, stormwater runoff, and potential contamination from industrial activities. The type of development that this changed ordinance could be detrimental to the watershed. This facility is located about 1,800 feet from the edge of Stafford Pond, could pose an issue to the future of the impact of the water quality. This region's greatest natural resource is arguably the drinking water supplies. Watuppa Reservoir Corporation, the Watuppa Water Board, along with the City of Fall River Water Department, has spent over 200 years protecting these resources. This includes owning property within Tiverton, as well as supplying water to the residents. We want to make sure that the future of these resources are protected. This letter was signed by myself and Mayor Paul E. Coogan from Fall River.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this proposed zoning ordinance? Any other members of the public? Any other members of the public? All right. You may now exercise your 1 to 2 minutes, sir. as
I'll keep it to
requested.
1 minute. So thank you for hearing us out this evening. We are very appreciative of your time. A few things I want to emphasize is that, as the president said, if this is approved, it simply allows the applicant to apply for a special use permit and prove to the planning board and to RIDEM that this facility can be operated safely. So when we're talking about zoning, it's a question of whether this conceptually should be permitted if they can meet those standards. So when questions are raised about why isn't there more information about how exactly is the facility going to work, that comes at a different stage. And I think a lot was spoken to about the obligation and the responsibility of town council members. And I would put forward that one of those obligations and responsibilities is to make a difficult decision. So you have, 70 or so people here in this room that all want you to vote no. And I understand that, and we get that. And you're not going to be sued if you vote no. This is a purely legislative act. But one of the hardest things to do is to say no to a very loud minority. And I think what we clearly have seen, and that we see on many projects, is that folks who live in the area and are most immediately impacted come up with reasons and marshal others to attend these meetings to say, no, it's the pond, it's the environment, when really what it is they don't want it in their neighborhood, which I understand, but it can be.
Please, excuse me. Excuse me.
And it's hard to say no to that kind of loud minority. So I respect your time and thank you for hearing us this evening.
Thank you. Excuse me. With that, I would like to close the public hearing. Thank you. Finally, we get to the point that everybody here is waiting for, which is our ability to now debate and discuss these issues. And I'm going to exercise my position as the chair to speak first in this regard. So my opinion is the following. Number one, I think we absolutely need a definition for C&D inside of our zoning ordinances. It was very clear from Ms. Anderson's testimony that, and also the lawsuit that we recently won against LAL, that what a construction and debris material recycling facility is nebulous inside of our zoning code. So if nothing else, we absolutely need to adopt the definition of the zoning ordinance as it sits today. My second opinion is that based on some of the testimony here, it's clear that, at least for me, we are looking at a potential revisiting of what happened with the original solar ordinance. I was on that council, as were several other members here, where we had asked the planning board to put together a solar ordinance. We thought it was complete. It came back in front of the council. We passed it, we moved forward. And then the unintended consequences happened because we didn't spend the time to think it through. And I have a list of, 7 or 8 things here, which I think should be included inside of the C&D ordinance if there was to be a performance standard for this facility within the PDP. So to that end, I would encourage, and I would be happy to make this motion to amend it, that the zoning ordinance, specifically in the use table, which is on the second page. So Section 13, Industrial Uses, Construction and Demolition Processing Facility. Right now, there is an N across every single zone in the town, with the exception of the PDP. My amendment would be to change the S to an N, and then pass the ordinance as written. Not to say that this would be a no forever for the applicant, but in order for something like this to, to move forward, I think that there's a number of items here that would need to be addressed or revised by the ordinance the way it was presented to us here. So for instance, what are the best practices, best management practices? Licensing of inspectors or training of inspectors for these types of facilities. Mandating that it be indoor only is a good example. Councilor Burk brought that up. Fire suppression systems, right? There's a lot of concern as it relates to total water use and, what type of suppression systems would be a performance standard for granting the special use permit. The amount of tonnage, right? There's obviously an escalator in there, so I think that should be revisited. Interior dust controls is another good one. And then water from the interior of the facility, what happens to that? So if they hose something down, it goes into the holding tank, where does that go? So until we get those addressed, I think that we should amend the use table from an S to an N and pass the zoning amendment as written, so we at least have a definition. And that was, as I understand it, Mr. Solicitor, the big issue in the LAL case is that it was a loose interpretation of something that wasn't contemplated in our zoning code, and that's what sparked the lawsuit 14, 15, 20 years ago.
At least 15, I think. It's partially correct. There was a prior ruling of the zoning officer that under the industrial uses that were listed in the code at the time, that the manufacturing, storing, processing, fabricating activities in the industrial zone granted of a special use permit did allow C and D. So that was one of the issues, and it was allowed. What was before the court was the denial of the master plan approval by the planning board when that application was before it. So it's not exactly like this, but it's similar. But I do agree that having a definition of what a C and D facility is something that lacks in our ordinance correct right now. And to have a more concrete definition is better than having a general definition. The changing the S, which is a special use permit, to an N would obviously make the definition of a C and D processing facility not permitted in the PDP. And as you noted, it's currently not permitted in any other zone. So it would just basically make it not permitted in any zone within the town of Tiverton if your amendment were to pass.
Yeah, and to revisit the original solar ordinance, that's essentially what we did when we kicked it back, when we, the council, kicked it back after realizing our mistake, kicked it back to the planning board. Well, we can take some blame for it as well. We were both on the council. So I'm happy to make a motion to that effect to change the S to an N in the Section 13 industrial uses table.
But
If,
I'd be happy to second that. Not the rest, yeah.
okay, so I will make that motion if you will second it.
Could I just make
Wait a
one?
minute.
Could I just ask one question? So,
Yes, sir.
Making an S to an N would be not permitted. We have performance standards that are in the ordinance now. Obviously, if it's an N, it's not permitted, so we should probably strike the performance standards as well. And then you can come back and rewrite them at a later time, but it doesn't make sense to have a not permitted use and then have performance standards in the ordinance.
Fair point. So in that case, I will amend my motion to strike the performance standards.
Discussion.
Yes, Councilor DiMederos.
I'm not sure I understand this at all. So what you're suggesting is we make it an N, but then we go back to the drawing board and write a definition for this facility. And then at some point, come back with definitions of what it could be and the zoning requirements for it, and then change some N's to S's if we feel we need to. Is that what that's what I thought, that's how you started it. I'm not arguing, I just don't understand
No. So let me clarify. So by doing this, we would essentially scrap the performance standards that are associated with this proposed zoning amendment. The S would become an N. we would maintain a definition of what a C&D facility is, which is still, the performance standards in my mind are still too nebulous for us to go forward. They need to be worked on. It's no different than when we, as a council, approved the solar ordinance, and then all of a sudden, thinking that, well, farms are gonna, put up a small solar array, it's gonna be great. And the next thing you know, we have companies coming in, contracting to clear cut woods and put in a massive solar array because we didn't contemplate that. So if there are specific performance standards that would enable this facility to operate cleanly and safely, those should be in the ordinance, but they aren't there today. So in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Solicitor, this would enable, at some point in the future, the applicant could, in theory, come back and petition the council or petition the planning board for a zoning change in this space, and then no different than somebody could petition the council for a zoning change for, putting up a wind turbine or something. But, Councilor Burk.
Just to give my rationale, I agree that it should be an N in the zoning. Oh, sorry. To give my rationale, I agree that it should be an N in the zoning use table. I do not, though, see this at all needing to come back before us at any point in time. I agree we need to get rid of the criteria because it's not allowed use. I think we do have to have a definition of a C&D in the zoning statute, ordinance, so that we know what's not allowed. Because I think that's clear, that we have to have clear ideas of what's not allowed. So going back to what we talked about today, so anybody can come back can come to us at any time to make suggestions on what to do with zoning. So that doesn't prohibit what we do tonight. If we do what we just described, doesn't prohibit that from happening. But I think we heard loud and clear from our residents who may not have been given the full respect, I'm sorry, by the attorney that you deserve. Because you have serious concerns. And this is not a hearing on a comprehensive master use plan or anything like that, because we're not the planning board. This is, in part, a political decision. And from a political perspective, and politics, it's kind of a nasty word sometimes, people think. But we do have to look at what's in the best interest of the town and our residents. And also, and I think we got sidetracked when we focused on this particular site within the PDP. Because as several people have said, this is not about this location. It's about whether or not we agree that it should be a permitted use, either by special or permanent, in the PDP. And I don't think it belongs there. I also don't think it belongs anywhere in town, but specifically tonight. Specifically tonight, we're looking at the PDP and the PDP alone, not one particular element of it, but as a whole, because again, as was noted, if we were to approve it as a special use permit, then tomorrow I can come put together a plan, buy some property, don't have the money, but theoretically, and do another one. And I may not agree to everything that was described by, in the PDP, by Mr. Mello and his attorney. So I support the N. I also, I support striking the criteria. I believe we need to have a definition, and I was trying to find it, Solicitor. There is also a list of prohibited uses, and I can't find that section. Oh, sorry, I was looking at these documents. Right, and that's what I was looking for, but it should be added to those prohibited use list.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Solicitor, but I don't believe that because the prohibited uses are in front of us, we could do that this evening.
Right, so we can do that at a future time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Janick.
So if we vote to change the special use permit to no for that area. I'm fine with that. But then we come back and do this all over again? Like, I don't know that that is in the best interest of time for these people, for us. I think we need to make a decision on whether we are going to change the zoning or we're not going to change the zoning. And I get the whole thing about let's change the definitions, but I think the people have spoken.
To clarify, Councilor Janick, I'm not suggesting that you bring this back in 2 months with something else. What I'm merely suggesting is that things do change over time. It could be a future council that wants to bring something up like this, right? For instance, when Jim Long proposed to build his facility, that was something that had to be added, recreational use facility, into the PDP. We make changes to our zoning all the time, and sometimes when we don't want to make changes or we push back on it, the state steps in and they do it for us by law. So nothing that we do is ever finite, but at least in the interim, I think, in my opinion, what was given to us by the planning board is not yet complete, much the same way that what the planning board pushed to us on the solar ordinance was not complete when it initially came back. Any of the councilors like to speak? Councilor Comito.
Yes. So where do I start, right? This is definitely not an easy decision at all. There's a lot of research that I've done in looking into all of this. And not all of it is negative. Not all of it is bad. I'll start with the Apple request that I did in East Providence. Their C&D facility had one fire. It was in 2008. It was in an open area, totally different from what is getting presented with Mr. DeMello. But still, it was a fire. Their pond nearby that is really close has 0 contaminants in it. Their second fire was in 2015 after they were already closed. It was an excavator fire. It was a loader, front-end loader fire. So 2 fires. To compare the C&D to all the fires that have been happening around us, listen, I've been in the fire just like the deputy chief here, battalion chief, has been in the fire service. Apples to apples. They're 2 different type of animals, 2 different type of fires. It is a fire, yep, you're correct. But the way they start, the way they happen is totally different. Looking at Massachusetts and Connecticut, because there was no report for Rhode Island with green energy and all the stuff that the engineer was talking about, Massachusetts and Connecticut had a lot of EPA information that said it was clean. It is good for the environment, things of that nature. Relax. Let me get through all my statements. I'm not here to I'm here to make a decision on facts, right? Good and bad. I've heard a lot of bad facts, and I'm trying to get out some of the other side of the story. There are good parts to all this. Everybody can say no, but facts are facts. I'm not making my decision on any type of political motivation because there's no need for it. So, ion batteries being thrown away into a dumpster. I've been in construction for a very long time, haven't seen it. Is it a potential? It is a potential. I don't see it. I've gone above and beyond looking now at different job sites, stopping. I'm also an inspector in Portsmouth. So I stop and I look in all these construction dumpsters, right? I look constantly at all of them to see what's happening. Regulations nowadays with asbestos. Prior to '78, you had your asbestos, you had your lead. Our building official has given me the regulations on how they handle it. And it doesn't come from the girl in the office, it came from the building official, which we should be getting our information from. there's a process. You have to get a permit. The building has to be cleared. If there's asbestos, it has to be removed through an asbestos company. The Department of Health tracks the asbestos. Same thing with the lead. It's all tracked and it's all monitored. Right from to get a demolition permit, right from the building official's office.
Excuse me,
That's where it stops.
Councilor Camino, if I may, just to remind the public, we as a body sat here, we listened at the last meeting when we talked about this, we listened to everybody speak here tonight. Now is our time to speak, and I think it would be valuable to those here present, and certainly those watching at home, to listen to what the council thinks and debates about.
As far as the water situation, everybody's saying Tiverton doesn't have water. I'm a firm believer. I think everybody's heard me say it before. I think we have plenty of water in Tiverton, right? So we only use 35% of that pond, 35%. The biggest problem is some of our infrastructure on delivering the water, right? So we just proved, as the fire chief said, we had hundreds of thousands of gallons that we just gave out on LAL, hundreds of thousands of gallons that we put out the fire in Westport, right? That water came from Tiverton. So we don't have a water supply issue, right, of not having enough water. That's my opinion. I'm waiting for the hydraulic studies to come out, but I think we have two water entities that are arguing, so I firmly don't believe we have a water problem, so it's just another thing that doing my research and finding. So a couple of things that hit me really big were the tax revenue. Unfortunately, it's not a large tax revenue to come in with the C&D. In the fire service, we also have something called risk reward, right? You risk a lot to save a lot. So I'm looking at this kind of like, okay, I understand the constituents, the people, I see where they're coming from, they live by the pond, they're on the pond. I understand you don't, but we still, people are on the pond are concerned about the water. We only have one Stafford pond, I'm also concerned about the water, right? I'm also concerned about the children, the school stuff, but we have a big buffer, right? Topography. The water actually, if I'm correct, I'm not an expert, the water actually goes in the opposite direction on runoff of the pond, right? If I'm looking at the topography correct. Those are just some of the other sides of the facts, apples to apples, right? But I'm really not sure I can support this at this time because of the fact that I am worried about the pond. It is our one and only water source, and I would have to have more expert testimony to understand the impacts on the environment and the question of the hazards getting into the pond. Every report that Mr. Jobin provided, it was a 300-page document. I read it 3 times, and if you read the top of the document and you start going through all the files and all the stuff, you didn't get to any complaints until you got down to the neighborhoods who didn't want it in their neighborhood. The DEM said they were doing their job right. They didn't contaminate, they didn't, I mean, you're laughing, but it's true. The report speaks for itself. His report speaks for itself. There was no problems with contamination. Their cleanup was no issues. They had low readings on hydrogen sulfide. So it's just things like that that I'm making my decision on and trying to understand both sides, right? So there's good and bad, good and bad. I'm trying to understand both sides. So you can sit and shake your head and you can sit and smucker that, but I'm trying to make decisions on factual stuff. And I believe I've done my due diligence. And the last thing I'm gonna say is that the gentleman that came from Fall River, from the government center, who was also concerned about the water, and I have to have, I'm gonna need proof that somehow, some way, that we're not gonna contaminate Stafford Pond. That's where I am with my decision, so.
Any other councilors like to discuss my motion? Okay. Hearing none, I'm sorry, I'll restate the motion. Yes, so the motion on the floor is to amend the ordinance to adjust the S to an N in the PDP, to strike the performance criteria for a special use permit, and it would maintain the definition.
Right, so we're going to amend section 13, industrial uses D, by changing the S located in the PDP to an N.
Correct.
Correct.
And then strike the,
And striking, just want to make sure we get the right reference. And we're striking Article 16, special use permits, section 5, criteria for criteria for specific categories of special use permits, striking in its entirety. N1, construction, demolition, processing facilities, 1A through double F.
okay.
And
Motion-
keeping the definition.
Yes, keeping the definition. So motion been made and seconded by Councilor Burk. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. So,
Motion carries.
motion carries. Okay, so following that, I would like to make a motion to approve the, not special use permits, but to approve the district use regulations and definition.
So that was part of the original motion.
Oh, okay.
I thought you said keep the
Yeah,
definition.
but don't we have to approve the
I
definition?
thought it was part of your motion.
Oh.
It was part of you.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you recorded it as such, then there we go.
So we're just keeping the definition that's proposed.
The definition is important. The definition is important because it says what's not allowed. So.
Well, it
Well, it
describes
says,
what's
it
not allowed.
describes,
Not
it describes exactly what C and
C and
D
D
is.
is, correct.
And then we've eliminated it from the use table by putting the N in, and we've eliminated the special use criteria, so there's no more criteria for special use.
So there would not be a C and D facility allowed in any zone within the town of Tiverton. The only zone that this ordinance would have changed to begin with, however, was the PDP. When you change an S to an N, you're not permitting that in that zone. All the other zones had already been not already, but it had been proposed that they not be permitted in those other zones.
And to clarify, the caveat there is that the town in theory could go build one because zoning doesn't apply to us, but
That is true.
that's true.
Yeah.
The town we could build one of these if we wanted to.
Could be a municipal
but-
C and D because the town.
Municipal could do it, but anyway. So, there we go. I'm sure everybody's gonna file out, so
Can we take a 5 minutes?
I'm sorry, yeah, we're gonna take a quick 5 minutes because I'm sure everybody's gonna file out. Thank you.
Would you like to have a personnel board meeting?
All right, you guys up? We're good? Okay. All right, so next item on the agenda is Councilor Janick, discussion and possible vote to extend the zoning revision committee's end date to December 31st, 2025. Councilor Janick.
Thank you.
I don't even know where we are.
So I took over the zoning revision committee after the election in November. So we started at some point after that. It's a small committee. We had trouble getting a quorum, so the meetings have been kind of sporadic, although we're on a good deal right now. But we have a lot to do on that committee, so I'm asking that we extend to December 31st. We added some items that we'd had no ordinances for in town, one of them being animals. And the chickens, yeah, we went down a rabbit hole with them, so we did. So we need more time, and we're requesting December 31st of 2025. We're moving along now, but we still have a little ways to go.
Is that in the form of a motion, Councilor Janick?
That would be a motion to
Second.
extend us.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. One bit of discussion.
Sorry, I was excited to second that.
Can we try and hold fast to the December 31st deadline?
We are trying.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? I love how the room's empty now.
Thank you.
Councilor Burk, discussion and possible vote to amend the council calendar for September 2025. Councilor Burk, I believe you have identified a holiday, and we need to push one of our meetings. Do you have a suggested date, please?
I do, so
My birthday.
the high holidays for the Jewish faith, which are the most important holidays in the year, first one being Rosh Hashanah, they always start at night. So it falls on September 22nd. It starts the evening of September 22nd, which is our regular holiday. And I am suggesting that we move it to September 29th, which is the following Monday. It's a fifth Monday in the calendar. And I ask that we also recommend this to any other boards and commissions, because sometimes I think people think this is about me, and it's not. It's about ensuring that we have an open atmosphere for anyone, regardless, and I would suggest we look at other faiths too, going forward, that we have an open opportunity for folks who may not practice the Christian religion to be able to participate in public meetings. And when you put it on their holiest of holidays, it does not allow that.
What is the, forgive my ignorance, what is the run time for Rosh Hashanah?
Rosh Hashanah starts the evening of Monday night and ends at sundown on Wednesday night. And the only reason I suggested not that, because, just like Christmas, there are things that overflow into that night.
So 2 points. The 29th, I believe we have held for a workshop that was tentatively going to be the discussion on the casino revenue spend. I know that will be a lengthy discussion and should be its own standalone workshop. I don't know, maybe we outright cancel a meeting? Do we have any impending business on the night of the 22nd that would necessitate the second meeting in September? Good. Would it be on the hold list? Yeah, no kidding. I hate these threaded emails. There it is.
Yeah? Do it.
No, that's fine. The Thursday's fine.
I don't see anything on the hold list.
Sally said I see. That's all I see. 11 kids. Got more to
Patrick's saying yes.
That's 8:25. All right, why don't we just go ahead and cancel that meeting? We do have the casino workshop on the 29th. We're rapidly approaching my goal of one meeting per month in September. We're almost there.
We got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're gonna be canceling
All right,
nothing.
is that amenable, Councilor Burke?
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right.
Well, I'm gonna do that, mate.
I said,
I'm going to your house.
Well, you can. We'll have dinner that night.
Make that statement for you.
We'll have a nice dinner.
29th is a federal holiday. Your son's birthday.
Okay. I have a golf tournament, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so next item is,
22nd.
Canceled it.
next item on the agenda is update on information from the 8/5/25 meeting of working group regarding the school department FY budget deficit. Very brief overview. Pleasantries were exchanged. That was essentially it. So more to come. The schools, the schools are, we did not. No, the schools are tasked with coming up with what the repayment plan is for us. Essentially, so everyone at home understands, when the schools ran the deficit, the town did not stop paying their bills. So it's not like there are contractors who have, or, people that have not been paid by the school department for, work that has been done. There's no outstanding bills. They just owe us, some money back. So they're working on what that's going to look like still.
They don't have a final number yet?
We do,
No, so
Why don't they have
the final number was 1.2, they believe, but there were some reimbursements that they believe were coming back.
Correct.
So that we're waiting for the reimbursements to come back. So it could be under, I think it'll be under $1.2 million, but there were some reimbursements that they were waiting for the state and other grants and stuff like that.
We went from 700 to 1.2 million.
That's what
Wow.
that's what was reported to us.
yeah.
I will say that.
Counselor.
I will say that, that Brendan was aiming to the 950 range, so the 700, I don't know where that came from. He said a few times publicly, he's looking at 950. So we are still way above that,
It
but.
was 700 at one point because we had a piece of
Yeah,
it.
the-
Said that.
Yeah.
Initially, yeah, that was their initial estimate.
Yeah, I'm not making it up.
No, you're not.
No, and just, I mean, I don't want to step on your toes, Council President, but one of the bigger drivers of the deficit was increased cost of busing. So that was
Yeah.
like, it was 25% of that deficit, which is mandated by state law, so it was a lot.
And we do have an upcoming meeting with the Department of Finance as part of a comprehensive plan to deal with this. Schools and also department.
Correct. All right. Next up, Administrator Jones. Update regarding beaches, including parking and hours of operations. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we're fast approaching, I can't believe I'm saying this, but we only have 3 weeks of the summer left, believe it or not. So we have been looking at the finances that we have left with the Recreation Department. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with the Recreation Chair along with the Chief Lifeguard and also the beach manager tomorrow to determine whether we want to open the beaches for the public either a couple days a week. I know they did a financial analysis. We do have the funding to do it, possibly 3, maybe 4 days a week, to open the beaches from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. Because as you know, part of the regulations that from not only locally, but from the state to charge, we need to have a lifeguard on duty. So this year, we've been very fortunate to have the number of lifeguards that we have along with the beach staff. So I'd like to, at least for the last remaining couple weeks, at least give the opportunity for the public to enjoy the beaches a little longer. But we're going to meet tomorrow, and knowing that normally we had discussed this would be a recommendation that I would make to you as a policy change, but this is not a permanent change because we're doing this as a pilot only for the next couple of weeks. If this goes well, my plan is to report back to you about just how the Recreation Department did, along with the Recreation Chair, and anything that came up during the summertime, so we can retask any potential policies, make them permanent in front of you before the start of the season for the next year.
Thank you. Councilor Camino.
Yeah, so, I mean, I understand. So it already seems like we're doing this. Is this in place already?
We're not changing all the hours, sir. So we haven't put anything into place because we were worried about being able to pay the staff.
So I was down at the beach the other night after, this is in place. They're already charging after hours, like.
So, okay.
I don't, so it kind of took me back a little bit, like how did this get in place without coming up to the council here or whatever? So the beach is already staying open later and they're charging people to come in. So I don't know how they got approval to do that with,
Well, because it's not a permanent change.
yeah, so I mean,
Still a policy change.
Still a policy change.
So it was a pilot program, and to be honest with you, sir, my understanding in the email that I got last week, we just found out that we had enough money to do it. So, like I said, I'm meeting, and I can understand your concern. I'm meeting tomorrow with the recreation chair, along with the beach manager as well. So I'll get an update about what's going on.
all right, there's been a few, so I witnessed it firsthand because I went, actually, this week I was on beach patrol for some reason. I know why. My wife was away in Florida, so I went and had my dinner at the beach, and I went down, and they were going to charge me to come in, and she said, actually, it's, you know, you're at the threshold, so I'm just going to let you go. I said, okay. And I sat at the beach, and I got to say, so many people are enjoying Grinnell's Beach. It was unbelievable. I saw the beach as being clean. I saw the fishermen in the appropriate areas. People had tents set up. So, I mean, I was only taken back by getting charged because we're trying this pilot program that I only found out through Facebook. So then I proceeded down to Fogland, and Fogland was unbelievably packed. Campers on each end. There must have been there was tents set up, but there must have been 40, 50 people underneath the tent having a party. I don't know if that's legal, but they were really enjoying themselves.
Well, I think you know, sir, that if they had a tent, that's a problem.
Right. That big canopy set up, but it was a church group. It was a church group. They were having a great time.
Sure.
But the amount of people just sitting along the shore in chairs was phenomenal. And I think we should do whatever we can to keep the beaches open and unlocked, because I think it's working.
I know in the past, I mean, the council made a policy decision about keeping the gate open.
Yes.
And in the past, even since COVID, as you all know, the issue hasn't been the want or the need to keep our public access areas and beaches open to the public, it's staff. And I know the Recreation Department and the committees have done a great job in attracting lifeguards, and that is also associated with training and pay, along with the beach attendants as well. And also with the DPW and the Recreation Department and the Maintenance Department in keeping the places clean. I know that you authorized the purchase of the concrete tables. I was told on Friday that they're on the way. I hope to see that they're going to be in place by not the end of this week, but potentially the end of next week, along with the additional trash containers that the town has purchased. So we can keep the beaches clean, we can keep them, and also we purchased the beach rake. But, thank you. So, you know, we want to be able to get out there and keep improving. So I will address, as far as the beach hours, my apologies to the council. It was my understanding that if it was a permanent change in the interpretation of making a policy, that I'd have to come in front of you. So I took the initiative of speaking to members of the Recreation Committee and also the beach manager. But the big issue that's kind of concerning to me, and I'll have to find out about it, the issue was we wanted to make sure that we had enough money to be able to pay the staff before we implemented this. So,
but correct me if I'm wrong,
Counselor.
this was actually brought up 2 meetings ago?
It was mentioned.
And I will say at our agenda meeting, it was discussed as well, and the solicitor chimed in with that the administrator does have the authority on the trial policy. Now, if there was a communication glitch, I was under the impression that this was brought up a meeting or 2 ago.
This was.
But I will,
Vote on it. You didn't vote on it.
correct, but it was brought up as it was going to be run as a trial. I will say that, to echo Councilor Comito, the 4 to 6, it's a popular beach time, especially at Grinnell's and yes, Fogland, but one of the concerns, the administrator and I were talking a while back, there was an incident that happened in Westport, and it was on the news, and a lot of the residents were saying, well, where were the lifeguards? So one of the concerns that I saw from that was, at 4 o'clock, the lifeguard packs up, waves and leaves, but yet there's 30, 40, 50 people on the beach, including kids in the water. And unless we have some type of policy where we're flagging these people out of the water so we can bullhorn them all and say we're leaving, kind of opens us up to a liability. But again, the other side of it too, being able to provide that service for an additional 2 hours, the revenue is secondary as far as I'm concerned. The safety of the guests and having the bathrooms open is more important. And then now that I'm saying that here again, I do remember clearly saying that pretty much in the same seat again, or a couple weeks back. I believe you were away, but it's right.
Yeah, maybe it was the 14th.
So it's, to me, again, the revenue is secondary, but to provide the service, have the bathrooms open, you're always going to have people on Facebook that have something to say about it. One of the feeds I saw the other day, it was mostly positive. So,
Councilor DiMederos.
Just
Councilor Camino.
one other question about the beaches. Who's the Fogland Road in the sand? Who maintains that? Is that us to clean it up every now and then?
they just did it the other day.
Thumbs up from the director. I'm sure he can mention when we bring him up here next.
I was down there, like I said, this past weekend, and a couple of people had stopped me. Hey, because they knew who I was and asked about, and I said, I'll look into it. I don't know. I know in the past we used to do it. I don't know is that still our practice?
The DPW does take care of that. Now, remember, on one side, it's like CRMC.
Right.
And then there's the town side, but the DPW, they do a fantastic job with the personnel and the equipment that they have in maintaining the beach. It's just we've seen, and I know you've all seen it, an explosion of interests in our recreation areas and on our beach areas, which is why in all of my experience, I know what we do, and we're trying to get out of this bad loop of we plan for our recreation or our summer season the week or 2 weeks before Memorial Day when we're opening up the beaches. We need to stop doing that. And I think part of doing this pilot program is once we close the beaches after Labor Day, I've already spoken to the rec director, W director, police chief, CSOs, anyone who potentially could be impacted. So let's start talking about this in the fall. The problem is, as you know, our beach attendants and our lifeguards, they're young men and women who go back to school. So then they go to college and we lose them. And then we don't see them again until they're getting out of school or they're graduating college. So to try and forecast what we're going to do as far as an approach and a policy about the number of staff, we are completely dependent on that personnel-driven type of industry. But what we want to be able to do is just at least prepare so we can address issues that are coming up about location of issues, concrete tables, beach rake, maintenance, painting all the facilities. So that is part of the plan. So my whole thought process about opening the beaches, which a lot of the other beaches in the area, Newport, Middletown, they open at 8 o'clock and they stay open later. So it's something definitely for your consideration. The reason why we're doing it is to have some data points to come back to you to see if it's worthwhile to entertain and making it permanent next year, knowing there's going to be costs associated with it, and not so much about charging people, about paying people to keep those beaches open.
Councilor Perry.
I would just suggest to Mr. Comito, Council Comito, I'm sorry, that you come down to Town Hall and buy a sticker, and you'll be able to go in and out anytime.
As a reminder, Councilor, you get a roll of bags.
Councilor DiMederos.
This is a little off topic, but not really. I don't know if anyone's been down there on a Tuesday night at Fogland. I don't think you were down there right on Tuesday. Kudos to the rec department because it's become very successful. McRae's is there. They're making hamburgers, hot dogs, lobster rolls. I was down there the other night and I could not believe the people enjoying the music and just hanging. So I just want to say good job, Recreation Committee.
Councilor Janick.
And, yeah, I do. I just want to confirm, you said longer days, but not longer into the season?
Correct. So
Right.
yeah, I know we're already going to start losing staff
Well, that
because
was my
everyone's going
concern,
back to
right.
school. So, but we keep it open till Labor Day. So our last day of the season would be that Monday, September 1.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I believe if she had to flex, I know you want to go home. I believe if the beach manager had to flex with the staff she had, that she would probably end up closing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as in no lifeguards, no staff, and pushing them toward the weekends where they're going to be more populated now this time of year.
Okay.
Not speaking forward.
Next item on the agenda, DPW Director Silvia, sorry. Discussion regarding the disposal of millings and availability to the public. Mr. Director, thank you for bearing with us through our public hearing.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Welcome to Tiverton.
The DPW land over there is running out of space for us to bring materials back. The millings pile is massive. millings over time re-solidify and become a solid pile. So we'd like to get rid of half, if not 3/4, and we thought we'd offer it to the public or to the Tiverton residents to start with. There's a place down the street of Fish Road that may take some, so we were hoping that we could offer it to people that would need it and then try to get rid of it to other material places after that.
Okay. When would the residents be able to come by?
We were thinking Wednesdays and Fridays. We have a worker that would be available that's not up at the recycling center to fill in for somebody to stay and load trucks if they come in. And we'd like the public to call us and make an appointment for a Wednesday or a Friday so that people aren't randomly showing up.
Okay. For those watching at home, Wednesday or Friday, please call the director.
Yes.
I think we've done that in the past. We've given stuff like, yeah.
It's-
Same thing with grinding up Christmas trees and all that.
I drove through there too the other night.
Yeah.
That's the highest I've ever seen that pile.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions for the director on the millings? Councilor
Can you
Janick.
just explain to the public what millings are?
So millings are from pavement roads. They come through with a machine and they grind up the pavement to then repave over it. And those millings are small pieces of asphalt. And you can reuse them. You can grade them back out. You can compact them. Some places even put oils back in them, place them back out on the road. So that's typically uses.
Thank
and
you.
that's what
I had to look it up. I didn't.
That's okay.
They were-
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Okay, and then we did the road last week. Done, yes. So we came through, but if it's windy and people are driving in and out, it pushes the sand right back out on the road. But our forces went down there and cleaned up the road last week.
Thank you, Mr. Director. All right.
Mr. President, may I make a
Yes.
suggestion? We take the next two items together?
Yes, by all means. So,
Actually, no.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay.
Never mind.
I'd like,
Because this is for the title company, so I want,
oh yeah, the two separate resolutions. Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2025-0029, which memorializes the road abandonment on Enterprise Way, a paper street previously abandoned by vote of the council on July 14th, 2025.
moved.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor Perry. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? All right, next up, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2025-0030, memorializing road abandonment of Communication Drive, a paper street previously abandoned by vote of the council on July 28th, 2025.
So moved.
Seconded by Councilor Perry. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Councilor Camino approves. All right. So at this point, I would like to make a motion to go into a closed executive session. Solicitor Marcelo Brown, General Law 42465A2, litigation, Town of Tiverton v. LAL Construction Company Incorporated, NC 2013-0087, litigation update. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor Perry, I guess. Councilor Camino, we'll give it to you. Councilor, roll call. Yes, Councilor Burk.
So, oh, yes, sorry.
Councilor Janick.
Yes.
Councilor DiMedios.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Councilor Paul.
Yes.
Councilor Perry. All right, we are now in closed executive session.